Welcome into an all-new episode of Panthers on Tap. I'm Curtis Rauen, joined by Ricky Raines, coming to you guys on a fine Wednesday evening. Beautiful 79, 80 degrees today here in North Carolina. Man, Ricky, it was a gorgeous day outside. I honestly wish I had the day off, golfing a little bit. But, man, it was beautiful out there.
It doesn't get much better, man, than like when the seasons start turning into spring in North Carolina. It is absolutely perfect, isn't it? But then we run into the hell that is summer in North Carolina. But we're gonna enjoy it for right now, man. I'll tell you that much.
Hey, I will never complain about the summers being in Wisconsin majority of my life. So I'll take every bit of the hot, sticky humanness. I know people here hate it, but
Give it a couple more years, man. See how long you stick. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna start wearing on you. I promise, man.
Well, we got a lot to jump into tonight. Bryson is out. He should be back with us next week. But Ricky, we got a ton to talk about in free agency here. We'll start with the way we always start this show, and that is, what are you drinking this evening?
I got something easy tonight, man. This is the Heist Brewery American Lager Crispy Kitty. Nice little Panthers American Lager. It's like 5%. Just an easy thing. But I figured if we're opening up the NFL season today, right? We just kicked off the brand new 2025 NFL season. I might as well get back into it with some Panthers beer too. How about you? You got some wine tonight, Curtis?
No, I got beer. I actually ran to the store about an hour or two ago.
So we're off the tee. We got rid of all the herbals.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
We're off the tee. We're off the Michelob this week. One of my favorite breweries in town here. I've had a couple beers on this show from them, but it's from Wise Man Brewing here in Winston-Salem. And it's called Mountain Calling. And I thought that was fitting with a couple of the free agents we signed went to App State, Mountains of North Carolina, Rico Dowdle. So a little shout out to them there.
Yeah, how about that?
So I upped my game tonight. So you should be proud of me,
man. I am. I'm very proud. I'm impressed. And I'm even more jazzed up for doing this now, man.
Yeah, it's an IPA, 6.6%. It's really good. I'm dabbling more and more into the IPA game. So
before we get into it, though, I want to give a shout out to the chat. This is probably the most active I've seen this chat. Like just at the kickoff of a show, we're talking about all kinds of chatter going on here. We've got usual suspects, Zach Griffin, talking about if there's breaking news tonight. Could it happen? I don't know, man. Look, I'm not the one that has the sources. I'm not the one that can say much. We've got lots of people that have insinuated things. I know there's a guy on Twitter, believe it's Mafi, and not the same Mafi from Billions, the terrific Showtime show. But he was talking about there possibly being a big trade in the NFL brewing. Didn't say it was the Panthers, but they will always pretend, right? We've got.
He also had like 1,000 followers. If this is the same guy we're talking about,
he's a Packers guy. If I remember who it is, he's a Packers guy.
I need to reach out to my buddies and see if this guy's
see if he's legit, man. Use some of those Wisconsin connections.
I'm already forgetting words, and we're not even a beer in, so we might be in trouble tonight.
No, that's terrific, man. We're winging it anyways without our ship steadier Bryson here with us. Kitty Lit, that's Alex. You guys know Alex, and Alex is really probably leaning into these trade discussion rumors. He has been on that campaign for a long time. Panther Pickle in the house, saying he loves the moves. Can't wait to talk about him, Pickle. We got people ready to be hurt again. We are officially in Carolina Panthers season. If we're talking about opening our hearts again to be hurt, man, that's terrific. Rico is the guy that everyone seems to be really excited about. Our guy Carlo Moore here. Carlo, what's up, man? I don't know if you saw, but they did he does the podcast with Rashad and Bashtai, the pregame podcast, and they did a nice, awesome, what is the right word? Renovation of the graphics and the design and the colorway. Looks really sharp, man. Good stuff there. All right. I'm sorry. I don't want to keep going on too long. Edgar is in the house, one of our friends. Just wanted to give some shout outs to the chat because they're one of our co-hosts tonight.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. The chat is alive and well. Don't forget, we do have a super chat. You guys would be so generous. It goes back into the show. We would appreciate that. So don't forget about that on YouTube. But let's get into it. So we got a shit ton to talk about. and I don't want to waste too much time. Let's start here with one of the first signings out of the gate in free agency, and that was Carolina's own Jaycee Horn. And highest paid cornerback contract in the league, 4 years, 100 mil. I think that was a discussion we had, Ricky, on this page was, is he going to get more than Surtain or not? And he obviously, they felt he deserved it. And kudos to David Malgata. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but he is a contract machine.
David Money Gotta.
Yes, exactly. So big money for JC. I like it, man. I mean, you got to pay your players. You got to pay your draft picks when they show out. The biggest question with him was availability. And, he proved that this past year that he can be available and changed his workout regime. And yeah, I mean, he had a hell of a season and earned a Pro Bowl out of it. So yeah, I'm excited about this deal. And I think this is going to be a key leader for this defense this year.
Well, and I think he took a step in the leadership department, right? When Derek Brown went down and then Shaq Thompson was out, he kind of had no choice but to kind of step up. But I think that he embraced that. You saw some of the attitude in some of those games. That was something that was just overall missing from this team, in my honest opinion. I didn't think that we had that grittiness, that nastiness that I think you have to have if you want to genuinely be a contender in this league. JC has always had that dog in him. We hear it in the post-game interviews and the pressers and the locker room interviews. But seeing it on the field, like you just talked about, Curtis, he had to be healthy. He had to get out there and prove that he could play for the majority, if not the whole duration of a season before he earned that money. But you pay the good players, man, that you drafted, that you develop here, and he's a great example of that. I think that he's well worth this money. They got in before some other key contract negotiations for big corners in the league as well. So I know that everyone's going to say he got paid more than Pat Surtain. That's okay, because Sauce Gardner is likely going to take the Jets to the bank for more money than this. And then in 2 or 3 years, as some of these other young guys in the league that are really making a name for themselves, right? The Derek Stingleys, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell. Think about in the next 3 years what those guys' contracts look like. This isn't a bad deal at all, man. So I'm very happy to have JC locked up.
And you nailed it. I wanted to touch on this too, is these contracts are only going to go up from here. You might as well get them while they're early. The Panthers were first to the shoot on this one out of those three that you mentioned. And the NFL's making money. I mean, that salary is going to keep on going up. It's only going to get more expensive for a lot of these guys. I don't mind paying the bill on this one this year. And I'm really excited to see what Jaycee Horn does in years to follow, because I only think his best years are ahead of him. Let's move on here if this is going to work for me. I don't know if it's going to, so bear with me here. Here we go. His running mate here, Mike Jackson, comes back, number 2 corner on the roster, 2 years, $14.5 million. Ricky, what do you think of them re-signing Mike Jackson?
I liked what I heard from him in the presser, right? Like talking about his renewed sense, right? This contract kind of being like his second life, if you will, in the NFL. He kind of the detail explaining, he had the injury in Seattle, then he had the new coaching staff come in. That injury couldn't have happened at a worse time because he didn't really get to showcase anything to that new staff. So he was kind of tossed to the side, found a home here in Carolina, was thrust into a major role as well. I don't think that the intention was for him to have to play that big of a role right out of the gate, but the Dane Jackson injury really hurt, at least from a theoretical standpoint. I don't know that it actually hurt the product on the field, because when he was out there, it wasn't terrific. But Mike Jackson, man, he answered a bell. And I think that next man up mentality is something that we have preached in Carolina. So to see it kind of show up was a beautiful thing. I don't know that he is necessarily the perfect person to be on the opposite side of JC, because I think that there are still some limitations in what he can and can't do in like a man coverage versus zone coverage. So I still think that you're going to have to get a little creative. I think that they could still look at, bolstering that secondary with a really good nickel that could also maybe have some versatility outside. But Mike Jackson, man, getting your quarterback too for about $7 million a year, which is a great contract for him. Shout out to him, by the way. What a nice come up. But that's also not a team backbreaking type of deal. So I like it, man. What did you think of it?
I like him as a number 2 corner over Dante Jackson. So
Mhm.
I think there's an upgrade there. I kind of agree with you slightly, and I talked about this last episode. I know the statistics were there, and he showed out and for coming in late to the season or early on in the season, right before the first regular season game, and held his own for what he could. But I do think he has some limitations, and when you go up against a high-powered offense who have multiple weapons, there are times where I'm hesitant or a little, I'm he gets me a little nervous in some coverages. So that will be something I hope he can kind of build upon this season, and him and JC and having more of a rapport now to see what they can do in that second year together as the two
Rappaport, man, you
tandems.
have been looking at way too much breaking news. My man tried to say report. He said Rappaport because we have been talking about nothing but NFL breaking news. I love
Hey
that.
man, dude, I've been refreshing Twitter for the last like 4 days, going
If
on
it's
two,
if
three
it's not a
batteries on my
Freudian
phone.
slip, if it's not a Freudian slip because it's about football, what do you call that? Is that like a Lombardian slip or something like that? Is that what happens when the brain
Lombardian
just
slip,
goes
I
to
like
football?
it.
Yeah, there we go.
But
Coin
yeah,
that.
I mean, I think he's serviceable at that spot. Would I want upgrades? I mean,
Sure.
I think you can. There's other guys out there that are better than him, but for the numbers, the contract, the familiarity with Jaycee Horn, you got to reward a guy, and he clearly wanted to stay in Carolina. Zach hit it on the head. I like how he
Yeah.
said if Carolina offered him anything, he'd be coming back. It sounded like he's been studying tape, which is awesome to hear
Mhm.
already. So you love that. I mean, he did. I mean, the stats. I mean, it showed he had a ton of pass breakups last year. I hope he can build off that. I hope when he's going toe to toe with some of the top wideouts when Carolina's facing teams this year, he can hold his own.
Yep.
But yeah, let's move on to the next one here, and Tommy Tremble. So Carolina now officially has 2 tight ends in the room. He signs a 2-year deal,
Mhm.
8 mil guaranteed. It's up to $16 million.
Mhm.
I guess I'll start with this one and then let you go, Ricky.
Okay.
You guys know how I feel about Tremble. Um, I'm not a big fan of this tight end room, to be brutally honest with you guys. I do like JT Sanders. I think he's promising. I don't hate the signing of Tremble, but I also hope they don't settle.
Mm.
So I'd like them to add someone else into this room because I think Tremble has had 4 years of opportunities, and the guy hasn't eclipsed, I think, over like 270 yards in a season. And I
Mhm.
get it; they've used him a lot more in the blocking scheme this year and in years past, but this tight end room, no one should be satisfied with. It has not, lived up to par since Greg Olson left. So understand it. I see where they saw some, I don't know if you want to call it like a glimmer of hope with him as he kind of had a connection with Bryce towards the end of the season. But we can't forget about the 3 seasons before when, his tight end room has been laughable, really. It's been
Yeah.
bottom of the league the last 3 or 4 years. So, I understand it. They don't have a ton in this room. The free agents that were out there, I don't know if there was some, decent blocking tight ends / catching tight ends that were available. So I understand this with the connection and everything, but I'm always looking for upgrades in this room. I am. So I wasn't too thrilled about this move, but
Yeah.
I understand it.
Yeah, I think that for me, man, like Tommy Tremble, what I always think of when I first think of Tommy Tremble was how he was the one that was very outspoken and laid it out that, man, I haven't been coached for the first 2 years in the NFL with that Matt Rule staff, right? It's like I literally got no coaching for this position. Like I'm coming from what is already regarded as one of the more difficult positions to transition from college to the pros. I know we've seen some guys have instant success, so like we want that, and I do, man. Trust me, like I want that bona fide one at tight end. And Tommy has been underwhelming. But I also think that if you're talking about this coming into it being his second year of getting NFL coaching, he dealt with some injury last year. When you look at what else was in that room with JT Sanders, is supposed to be a pass catching guy. We know the blocking isn't there, and the pass catching was okay from JT, but I saw some athleticism limitations with JT that also gave me pause on how high of a ceiling he could have here. And then you look at Jordan Matthews. I mean, Jordan Matthews is literally a wide receiver turned tight end, right? So you're talking about a guy who is pushing 225 pounds. That's not an inline blocker. It's not a terrific run blocker in space, even when you get him out. Tommy Tremble is by far the best blocker that we have in that room. I think that he also is athletic enough and a decent enough after the catch guy. You see, he wants to hurdle everything. I think if he can get over that last hurdle of being consistent and catching with his hands and kind of like playing with a little bit more spatial awareness on the field, I think then you could talk about him being a real dual threat. But I think this was a move that they had to have if they want to try to feature any kind of 12 personnel, because you can't have Jordan Matthews and JT Sanders going out there and being your two tight ends in that set. Maybe they still draft somebody. If you were looking at the free agent moves, Evan Ingram was really the only tight end that would have moved the needle much for me. And I think that was more of a strictly pass catching guy that lines up in the slot. And I think that if you're going to do that, man, what do you do with JT Sanders, right? It just becomes this weird thing that I'm not sure they're ready to say we didn't get the right thing with JT. I think they want to develop that and find out. I think this move makes sense. It's 2 years. You're not locked in. It's not a terrible money. So, yeah, Tommy Tremble coming back doesn't hurt, but it also doesn't make me warm and fuzzy inside about the offense.
Yeah, and you touched on it there for a second, and that's the biggest thing for me is consistency with him. There are plays where I'm like, holy shit, grab, great play, and then the next one you see, and it didn't happen as much this year, but it's happened years past where a ball hits him in the hands, a drop touchdown I think he had that Bryce hit him on. It's just that stuff can't keep coming up, and that's the thing I struggle with the most with Tremble. It's like, how many times are we going to give this guy a chance before it finally breaks through on a consistent basis? So that was just I get it. Fans love him. I understand it. They love his attitude and everything else. And maybe I'm being too harsh on him because he did go through those rule years where he, according to him, didn't get much coaching. So we'll see. We'll see what happens this year if he can make a leap. Yes, everyone, we will get to – I know everyone wants to talk about Higgins. We'll talk about him at some point here, and we'll get into that. Let's move on, though, to the next guy that they signed, and that was Corbett. He's coming back on a 1-year, $3 million deal. Ricky, I know you were huge last year, and we talked about it on this show of going out and getting a rookie center in the draft last year when it was a pretty stacked class. They obviously didn't do that, put a lot of faith in Corbett, first time ever playing it in the NFL in game. And, he showed out until his injury. He really did. He had a hell of a season up until that injury. He obviously went down, and then Cade Mays was slotted in there. But Corbett, you like this move by them to bring him back? What do you think? Do you think he's got you think this is his job to lose at center? Or do you really think Cade Mays could push him for that starting job?
Yeah, I like this move because I did like what I saw from Austin Corbett when he was healthy. And you're right. I was one of the biggest alarmists, if you will, about the center position going into last year. I didn't like that we did not have a center that had played NFL snaps at center. Maybe I'm crazy for that, but it just didn't make me feel safe. It didn't make me feel secure about the guy who's responsible for snapping the ball to Bryce Young and protecting him, as getting his head up in time to protect him and calling out all of the line, responsibilities and anything he sees on the defensive side. I thought they needed that. Austin Corbett, though, my doubt was never about his ability as an offensive lineman or an athlete, right, that could take on that part. Between the ears, we knew that Austin was a sharp dude. We knew that wasn't going to be the problem. The problem was, can he stay on the field? Can he stay healthy? And unfortunately, he didn't stay healthy all year. You brought him back at a very team-friendly deal, so I'm not mad at that one bit. I know the one person that somebody probably is mad about is David Newton is mad because Austin Corbett is proving that he's willing to compete for a job. And he didn't need to go to a place where somebody, rubbed him on the hiney and told him everything was okay and he'd be the guy. No, Austin Corbett has no problem competing. Cade Mays is going to be the guy that he competes with. And the best center is going to win out that job, and they're going to play. And if it's Austin Corbett, you got your starting center and he stays healthy for $3 million for a year, sign me up, man. If you want to draft somebody in the middle to late rounds that has offensive line versatility or was a center, bring them on. If the undrafted free agent kid out of Oklahoma keeps panning out, Andrew Rame, if he keeps on getting work and he starts looking like a ball player, I'm game. I don't care what the name on the back of the jersey is. I care about the name on the front. So give me the Carolina Panthers having the best center that they can have, man, and this is a fair deal. So I'm cool with it.
Well said. Let's move on to the guy who is, for right now, his backup. We'll see how things play out, and that was Cade Mays. He was tendered by the Panthers. It's a 1-year, $3.2 million deal, a guy who they stole off the Giants practice squad last year. Pretty wild, ride for Mays. He was on with Carolina. They cut him last year. He goes to the Giants, and then they scoop him off the practice squad when Corbett goes down. So kind of a poster ride for Mays, but he played well last year for the most part. I did like Brady as well at that spot, and we'll talk about him in a minute. But Carolina clearly valued Mays and brought him back, and I think these guys both showed they were serviceable. I know we talked about it last week with maybe they might have been a product of their environment with both Robert and Hunt and D-Lou on each side of them. And I think that helped them out greatly, but man, it worked. We can't complain about it at all exactly. So yeah, I like this. I think he adds depth, and I think Carolina does value him as potential, the future starter here.
Yeah.
Once Corbett is gone or if he goes down again. So what do you think of Mays?
You nailed it. And I think the most important part for me is when you said this is a discussion that we've had before where we talked about the benefit of playing next to Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, right? Well, breaking news, Curtis, here on Panthers on Tap, we still have Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. So, these guys are going to play in between those hog mollies once again. And not only are they going to play in between them again, but they have the continuity and they have the familiarity and the relationship of knowing what those guys do well, how they like to play those positions, the timing of when they're going to get to spots. They know all of that. Continuity is one of the biggest keys to offensive line success. As long as your offensive line isn't complete trash juice booty cheeks, you can keep that offensive line together and anticipate some sort of development and progress from that unit. And I think that's absolutely what we should anticipate with this Panthers offensive line, because I think they've got a good amount of talent. They've got a good combination of veteran guys and younger guys. Icky, if he continues to take steps. Dude, I'm excited about it. Do I think that Cade Mays is like a world beater center individually? No, I don't think I would go that far. Do I think he works well in the scheme of what we're doing right now with the talent around him? Sure. I think him and Corbett can absolutely hold it down in that position.
Sorry, I was distracted there for a second. I'm trying to work through some things here. Give me one
second.
Curtis
is still working on some of the inner workings. This is TV guy Curtis happening right now. He's making all the magic happen on the back scene. This is what happens when we go from a 3-man band to a 2-man band,
Yep. The wheels are falling off. Let's move on here. Another guy on the offensive line, Brady Christensen. And man, Ricky, I'll be honest with you, I was not expecting this to happen. We talked about him last week. I thought he was pretty much gone from this team, and he was going to be signing and becoming a starter for another team. And just some breaking news. It looks like the Chargers just signed Mike Williams. So he goes back to Los Angeles, the wideout.
There's your big wide receiver news, guys. No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, I didn't expect this. I know, kind of reiterate, I don't know if for folks who maybe not have listened last week, your thoughts on getting Brady back.
I think it's a really good get. I think that the versatility matters, because I also think that Yash did not work out very well as the backup right tackle or even as the swing tackle. I don't think that he was overly impressive. I think that Brady has familiarity there. I think that he is a pretty steady player. My thing with Brady Christensen, okay, and I'm going to say this, and I don't want this to sound like a negative thing at all, but people are surprised that he didn't get offered big starter money. But Brady Christensen has never been a consistent starter in the NFL. He played left guard that one year and had a solid year and then ended up injured, but he's never proven that he could play on the outside. He's never proven that he can hold up for an entire year. That doesn't mean that he's not capable of it. It doesn't mean that he doesn't play football well, but he has not proven to anybody that they should give him $10 million a year. So I think that when you talk about it, Brady seems to really enjoy his life in Carolina, seems to be a pretty decent, like family man. His family seems to like it here. I don't think that for him, he saw this huge benefit in uprooting that unit, right? His family unit, the home unit, from where they were happy and where they were comfortable for a minimal raise in pay. Now, if it was a huge raise in pay, I bet you he would have went. But it sounds like he wasn't getting offered that. The Panthers told him that if they could, in that exit interview, they told him, we're going to be competitive. If we can get you back here, we're going to do that. They did it. So I'm happy that they are conveying messages to these players and that they're following through on that for the benefit of the football team.
Yeah, I mean, versatility is huge. Guy can play pretty much any spot on the offensive line, whether you like him or not. I've always been a big fan of Brady Christensen. I think he's a reliable player. I was shocked that he did not get a deal as a starter. Clearly the league didn't see him that way either. I told you guys a couple weeks ago about him, and just talking to my source over the last couple days, give you guys a little bit of tea here on Christensen. He did have other offers, and they were similar to the Panthers. Worse, the kind of the same sort of thing where he was going to be in that like Swiss Army knife type of backup role. And it was a pretty easy decision by him to just stay in Carolina because it was very similar across the board. He and I tweeted this out, like he loves Charlotte. He likes where this team is headed. So it was a no-brainer to come back. So, his camp was kind of shocked that his market wasn't a little bit more robust. And teams weren't calling more and offering more, but that's the way things shake sometimes. So, but I'm glad he's back. I mean, I think Carolina's offensive line is, you kept a strength. You made a strength stronger, I think, with bringing all these guys back. So,
completely agree.
I mean, it's crazy to think a year ago or 2 years ago now, we're sitting here talking about how bad this O-line is. So hats off to Dan Morgan.
The Panthers could do something cool here that they have not had the ability to do or the privilege to do in quite a while, where they can draft an offensive lineman without the pressure of saying, we need you to start day one and be the guy at this position. They can draft a guy and develop him. If they really like somebody who falls and they're not sure that he's a starter right away, they can actually draft him and let him sit and learn, and then have a contingency plan in place with the linemen that they have. That's how teams stay good and build a roster. I think that's one of my favorite parts.
Oh, sorry, we're
competing.
There we go. There's Alex. Kitty let Zio. Is that you say that, Zio?
Yeah.
Saying that wrong?
Yeah, no, you're good. He's trying to help improve your internet with the $5. But you know what, Alex, I think it's going to take way more than that. And you're going to have to get somebody to come out and dig the ditch for the fiber cord and then do the install. Like, my man is still, we make a joke about this almost every single show, but he's dialing in on a fax machine to do this show every single week, man.
But cheers to Alex. We do appreciate it.
And Alex, I will give Alex a little tip of the hat here. Alex has been subtly, Alex, do you want me to say subtly, or do you want me to be honest? Subtly nodding that he thinks that T. Higgins has been the target for the Carolina Panthers for a long time. I know everyone can see the chat. I know everyone can see Twitter going nuts right now with the supposed internet rumors that T. Higgins could be on his way.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, but shout out to Alex.
And Alex, just for folks that know this internet thing, I live out in the county. I'm not in town, so I am literally at the of whatever the hell internet is available in my area. And we've switched, we've tried. We only have two options. We already used one of the options, and this option still sucks ass, as you guys can see.
The most beautiful thing about that was poetic, because while you were trying to explain your internet situation,
it was jumping around.
You glitched hard as hell. Like when you literally said, I live in the county, I can't, and it just stopped. And I was like, yep, that's it. That's exactly it.
Oh, that's great. All right, let's move on here. Let's talk about this guy for a minute, because this is literally how I felt about the Milton Williams era in Carolina. And I will be brutally honest, you saw me on Twitter reacting to it on the Panthers on Tap account. It drove me nuts. This was the one guy I wanted over anyone else in free agency. I didn't care what they spent to get him. I thought this guy, without a doubt, should be in process blue. And, for what, 40 minutes, he was, and then he wasn't. And it was all through the Twitter mess that happened on the opening day of the tampering period. So that just threw a whole wrench and everything as well. So like we couldn't even really communicate with anyone unless you had phone numbers of people. So
it was like an M. Night Shyamalan movie or something happening for free. Just all
it was like my internet was running Twitter for like half the day.
That's it. Elon passed the sticks over to Curtis and was like, "Hey, will you handle this for a second?"
So yeah, this was. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I was very pissed off most of the day in free agency. I know Merrig, when he signed, like that happened in between there, and I still was pissed. Like I was just not happy. And I'll be honest with you, and I know I kind of shared this online. I still would have paid him what I I have no qualms about that. And I kind of tweeted this out, like no one's talking about overpaying Robert Hunt last year. And I knew it was going to take Carolina more. I don't know how much more New England would have went up from where they were. So maybe they could have gotten priced out. But I do think Carolina at that 26 number that they finally reached at. So who knows where it would have ended up from there if New England would have wanted to go up even from that point. But I would have went out and gotten him, because I do think he's a pretty special player. He's young. He's exactly what Carolina needs. And I was definitely bummed. And I know some of the moves, and we'll talk about them. They helped me off the ledge a little bit. But that was one, without a doubt, I was very disappointed they could not snag. And I thought they had it in the books, and it just slipped away, man. And it's the Carolina way, man. It really is. So
that was a tough situation to kind of decipher, right? Because like at one point it felt like we completely dropped the ball in that negotiation, right? Like that somebody swooped in and stole our prize piece. But then when you think about it a little bit more, it kind of came across more so that it could have even possibly been Milton Williams' camp that thought, hey, look, like we've got this good offer here, but let's let everyone know that we're about to accept it in case anybody else values us in a crazy way. So the Patriots come swooping in, and I think the Cardinals were also involved in that too, if I remember correctly. But the thing that I agree with you on, Curtis, to an extent, I don't think it would have been bad business to pay Milton Williams the money. Like, I don't think that I would have looked at that and immediately been like, man, we got fleeced for that deal, because I'm not ready to judge an addition. And this goes for any of the guys that we brought in too, right? I'm not ready to judge any of them until I kind of see how it starts playing out a little bit. But the money, this is what Brant Tillis is here for. We're supposed to be able to figure some of these things out. We saw with the moves that happened after this whole debacle, we saw that we had the money to do it. Now, I think that there is a direct correlation to the cost that we ended up paying a guy like Turk Wharton. I think there's a direct correlation to how much we paid him as opposed to missing out on Milton Williams, because I don't think that they make that move without missing out on Milton. And I do have my thoughts on that, and if I agree with it or think that it was a smart or good thing. But as for Milton Williams, man, I think that he's a terrific football player. I think he's going to make a difference there in New England. I do think that you can survive without that move, but I would have taken that move gladly, and it would have made me feel extremely cheery about this first wave of free agency, because when you start looking at these other players that we did bring in, there's some good players, but there is none of the brand name players. And when we talk about Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, part of the reason that I felt so good about overpaying them is I knew who they were and I knew what they did. They had years of showing it, and they did it on big stages. They did it with good teams. Now, Milton has been a good player. He has not been the level of Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, so there is still some projection, but he has done it on a really good football team. So his, there's just things that you could look at with him and think, I could see that translating easily. But it's not the end of the world. We all got over it. And I think that we could all collectively say we added some decent pieces here.
Yeah, and my thing is, and I know we kind of talked about this off air in our little chat, Ricky, and that was, I know everyone wants to throw out, well, you still got Derek Brown in the room, and this guy's making more, but we also you can't have one or the other when we talk about these contracts are always consistently going up. It's the market's always going to get reset every single year at positions. So to throw that out there, you also have Derek Brown coming off injury. Is he going to ever get back to the level he was? We all hope so. I think he can, but like that's not a guarantee either. So that kind of is a little pushback to the folks that want to throw that out there, because that is typically the defense for why they wouldn't go out and sign him. But
yep.
My biggest thing is, are we even talking about that number? If they came out and said Carolina signed Milton Williams for $26 million a year, and there was nothing about New England being in the mix and they lost it to New England, like, would we be talking about that contract? Yeah, maybe they overpaid him, but we'd be like, holy shit, we got Milton Williams. So like, maybe. I think it's easy.
Maybe. I think the part of that would draw people's ire is the thing that Zach is talking about here as well, that it would have outcosted or outpaid Derek Brown. That would have been the part that somebody would have said and been like, whoa, okay, hold on, let's wait a second. We're paying a guy who has solid production, but not eye-popping production and not the longevity, and does struggle in an area where we struggle against the run, right? We would look at that and we would say, yeah, that's hefty. But I agree with the sentiment of, would we look at it and say, what a mistake? Or would we call it the cost of doing business in Carolina, right? We talk about a Panthers tax all the time. Is that the thing? Do we sit here and we say, hey, that was just what we had to do to get this guy here? And will he be a better addition ultimately for the Patriots than the collection of players that we brought in? Because sometimes, man, having four isn't always better than one if none of them are as good as the one, right?
Mm-hmm. Now, I do want to talk about it for a second, because I was waiting on some responses. So we're going to touch on it real quickly here, because I know folks are blowing up the chat about it, and that's T. Higgins stuff, okay? So I looked at the guy's bio who's tweeting this stuff out right now. Everyone wants to jump to conclusions. And it sounds like he covers some sort of, or he's focused on the Packers. I reached out to my buddies who are all Packers fans who I trust up in Wisconsin. They never heard of this dude. So you want to take that for what you will. Guy's got 1,000 followers. He may be respected by some folks. I know followers are always the gauge of, who's a good source or not. But I'm just telling you, when I reached out to them, they had no idea who this guy was. So just take that with a grain of salt. I know everyone wants to run with narratives. I will be the first to say, I would love T. Higgins in black and blue. He is one of my favorite wide receivers. I've been trying to push T. Higgins to Carolina for years, every time he's a potential free agency. I personally think Cincinnati's front office is stubborn as hell, and they are not going to get rid of a player like him. And I don't see it happening. And honestly, they might not even get rid of Trey Hendrickson, whether they said he was open for or willing to go reach out to other teams for a trade. I just think that organization is stubborn. And if I was a player, I hate to play for that organization, because they do not want to get rid of you. And if you want to leave, good luck. So I get all the it's fun to talk about, and I understand that. And I seriously would love T. Higgins. I think he would be great for this offense. I just don't think it's realistic. And you guys can have fun with it. I don't mean to be that way. That's the way I see it. And I just wanted to throw that out there. Ricky, if you want to jump in at all on what your thoughts are and all the talk.
Yeah, I mean, I have heard of Brian Maffei multiple times. I do know that he has a little bit of cheese in the game, if you will, with the reporting. I know that he's a respected member of the media there. He handles a lot of the draft stuff. I think they do a draft spreadsheet every single year. That's probably how I'm familiar with him. But I think that he's not like a hack by any means. I would not describe him as that way. Now, I saw that Pickle posted a tweet from another guy on Twitter here where it's Mike Mushnick, and it says the Panthers are getting closer to a deal with 49ers for wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk per sources. That guy, I am familiar with his name as well in the opposite way. I have always seen people say to take what he says with a whole lot of, not even a grain of salt, but like take the entire cellar of salt and pour it all over the tweet. Like, you're going to need to really think about that a little bit more. I don't know, man, to be honest. And B Pies says in here, what would it cost pick number 8 and what else? I don't know that it costs number 8. I don't think
no
that
way in hell.
And I also don't think that that's what they would give up. I think that if 8 is involved in any way, it's for a swap for the first. I don't think that Dan Morgan and company seem at all interested in losing a first round pick this year. I think that they could look at trading back or swapping for a pick or something. But again, I'm not entirely sold that this is like set in stone. I hope it is. If we get T. Higgins or we get even Brandon Aiyuk, I'm going to be excited because we don't have the single playmaker on this offense that when you line up, the defense is going to look across and say, man, I hope we can stop him, right? Like, do we have anyone that they say, I hope we can stop him? I don't think so. Chuba Hubbard is probably the closest, and I like Chuba Hubbard, but like, let's be honest about it, man. Like, if Chuba Hubbard is the only thing, I don't think that is scaring a defense. So I think that bringing in a T. Higgins does open up a lot of possibilities. I think it helps out a guy like Xavier Legette. I think it helps out Chuba and JT Sanders. He can be a difference maker. But until there is any kind of actual steam or any kind of actual smoke, I'll play the patient game.
Yeah, and it's interesting that either beat reporter locally or any national reporter has picked this up yet. And I get it. Like, there are folks out there, and I want to believe it. Like, I really want T. Higgins, but I also don't want to be let down and be pissed off. Because I believe someone that I don't really know yet. And I mean, I trust your judgment too, as well, Ricky, with talking about that first guy. So you got to kind of weigh the scales there a little bit, but it's just like, there's so much give and take. And from me being disappointed in the Milt Williams, so like, I am just taking everything with a grain of salt. If it's official, it's official when it happens. And I love it. Like, I'll love being wrong that I didn't think T. Higgins would be here and he comes here. I would love that. I would have a T. Higgins jersey on pre-order the minute it is official. Like, I love that dude. I really do. He's one of my favorite wideouts in the league, but I am pumping the brakes until it's, from someone who is higher up and has solid sourcing that I trust. And you know what? We'll see what happens. And Alex and C3 Anthony, I think it was, they've been pushing this for a while now.
And Alex says, am I not reputable? It's not. I don't think that it's not that I don't know that Alex is a good person and a trustworthy person, but I want this to be from somebody in NFL circles. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there are plenty of breadcrumbs that can be followed that could make you believe a conclusion. But we also have seen situations that seem entirely set in stone, if you will, right? Like that are done deals in the NFL that go wonky real quick. So while there could be things that lead you to conclusions, I don't think that I'm taking any information as gospel until it is confirmed. And the guy, Mafi, that did post that originally, said that a big trade was coming. He never said T. Higgins. He never said the Panthers. Now, somebody had asked him, hey, if this has to do with Carolina or Charlotte and Process Blue, like this tweet, and he liked the tweet. You can do that. It's not guaranteeing anything. Like, there are things that you could do just as like a little bit of fun that you're having on the internet. So again,
and I think that's exactly what's happening. But
I hope he's exactly informed and that he's so close tied to this thing that he knows that T is already packing his bags and is placing his first order at Bojangles. I hope that's what's happening, but I don't know that. So I've got to use a little bit of reserve judgment here.
Yeah, and there was we talked about I think you mentioned the Brandon Aiyuk thing, and then we'll get back to our conversation about where we were at with the show. But the Brandon Aiyuk thing, I don't think is a real possibility, and there's one big reason. He had some issues in training camp with Kyle Shanahan last year. It was something where he like wore something he wasn't supposed to or whatever, and there was like some back and forth. And this was after they signed him, I believe, to a long-term extension or close near that. I remember reading an article on The Athletic they did about how Kyle Shanahan literally sprinted up to the San Francisco GM's office, whose name is escaping me right now, to let him know not to trade him to, I believe it was Pittsburgh at the time. Like he thought that because he wasn't at John Lynch wasn't answering his phone. He literally sprinted up to his office in the middle of a meeting to make sure that trade didn't happen. And there was some issues in training camp. I think Carolina does not want to touch a receiver that has those type of issues that even resemble Deontay Johnson last year. I don't see that happening ever again for this coaching staff. I could be wrong on that, but that's just my gut feeling. So that little rift with Aiyuk and Shannon, I have a hard time believing they'd want to try to go and get someone like that. Maybe he loves this coaching staff. Who knows? But that's just my inkling. So
my hesitancy with Aiyuk also comes from the injury, right? He's coming off of a significant injury. He's a terrific route runner, and part of that is because of his suddenness and his cutting and his ability to make those types of moves. That I just do have a little bit of hesitation now. If you get him for a cheaper price, cool. But I don't know that a team like the 49ers, who also just got rid of Deebo Samuel, they have Ricky Pearsall, they have Jacob Cowing, but Johnson. But I just don't know that they're going to look at this and say, hey, we're going to give you Brandon Aiyuk for a fourth or a third. But I'm not sure that I'm super inclined to give much more than that for a guy that still has a lot of question marks.
And I honestly wouldn't be shocked if they dealt him, because it looks like 49ers are cleaning house. And there was clearly some rift after they signed that contract. And it sounded like they almost regretted that long-term deal with Aiyuk. So, and that wasn't even based off injury. That's just how things played out after the fact. So let's move on. If it happens, it happens, and we'll talk about it next week. Or if it happens through this, like the chat is saying it's going to happen tonight, we'll talk about it then. So
that's right.
Let's move to the first guy that they signed. And I know Ricky was very excited about this pick. And
I was.
I'm going to make sure I pronounce this right, because I looked this up and I don't know how you pronounce it, but I saw it as Trayvon Marag. It's Marag.
Okay.
It is not Morag. To say it's Morag, everything I've heard, I watched a Las Vegas Raiders interview with him, and they said Marag. So Trayvon Marag is how it's pronounced.
Now I got to know. I got to know real quick.
Hold on. I would think if they had said it wrong in that interview, he would have corrected them. Maybe not. Maybe he's a nice guy. But you're saying
Marag. Is it Marag, or is that your Wisconsin thing, or is it Marag?
Marag.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm making sure here. I didn't know if that was a Wisconsin accent. So, I didn't want everyone running around in North Carolina with a Wisconsin accent for only this guy.
Marag. It's Marag. Yes, Marag. Okay. So it's Trayvon Marag.
Okay.
That's what you were asking to clarify, correct?
In a way. Yep. I don't know that it actually clarified. Trayvon Marag. I got it.
And the phonetic spelling on that, if you really want it, it's Trayvon, and then it's MAIR-IG. That's how it's phonetically spelled.
Perfect.
And I know you're big on that, so I wanted to throw that out there.
I am. Yes, sir.
Anyway, so 3 years, $51 million, the highest price safety in the free agency this go around. And I loved it, Ricky, too. I really did. I had my doubts as well about Javon Holland. And I was pretty stoked about this. I know you spoke very highly of him, so I'll let you go here. What do you love so much about Marag?
I mean, look, he's an athletic guy. He's got good closing speed. You can see it in his run support defense. I think that where they had him confused in Las Vegas for a little bit of time is that when you would see him up close playing press on some of these slot guys, that wasn't his game. Like he was credited for allowing 5 touchdowns last season. I went back and watched all 5, right? I think that there's 3 that are legitimate. One was against what I was talking about, where he's in press coverage. he's impressed against Mike Gesicki for the Bengals. And he actually has good coverage on him, and he stumbles. And Gesicki gets out to the outside corner of the end zone, and he catches a touchdown. It was on an 11-yard pass. The only other deep pass that he was beat on was a deep pass by the Saints that was on a trick play. They handed it off to Kendre Miller, and Kendre Miller threw it back to Spencer Rattler, and Rattler threw it deep for a touchdown. It had Merrick completely turned around 3 different times because of the action of it, and he was playing single high back there. So that one absolutely is on him. And then he had one on Ladd McConkey where McConkey caught it out in the flat. He came crashing down. McConkey stopped on a dime and got past him for a touchdown. That's a play that I would have liked to see him make. But I think as Panthers fans who have had this shady infatuation with watching Ladd McConkey all year anyways, just because we're miserable people, I think that we sat there and we can tell everybody, Ladd McConkey's a good football player, man. He makes a lot of guys miss. So I'm not going to take that one too much for Trayvon either. But what I will say about him, outstanding tackler, takes great angles, very aggressive, great instincts, can change direction really easily. I think that he is definitely more of a box safety. I think he gives you that physicality, and I think that we needed that. I don't think that we had a versatile hybrid type safety like Merrick on this roster for the past, 6 seasons. I would think of Eric Reed probably as the last guy that has his same similar skill set, and I really enjoyed him as a player. He led us in tackles the year that he was here. So when I really think about what Merrick can do, our run defense was pitiful. I think that this gives some versatility for Evero in the way that he can kind of run his shells and the way that he wants to show pre-snap looks too, because I think that you can have Trayvon come screaming down when he's in a too high look, and you can have it shift post-snap and come screaming down on a blitz. I think he's a very good blitzing safety. I also think that he can play very adequately, if not above average sounds bad, but at a higher clip than an average safety, which I think is as much as we saw from Xavier Woods when he's playing high. I think that if he plays deep, I think that he can also cover very well. Again, that's that instincts and his closing speed and his reaction and diagnosis. I think that he has that. He broke up a ton of passes last year. He had 2 interceptions, I think. I think he had 3 the year prior. I mean, this guy can turn the ball over. He can make great plays, tackle for loss. I think he's an impact defender, and he's exactly what this Carolina Panthers defense needed. And it does still allow you, if you have a safety that you like, and we've seen them, talk about, or not them necessarily talk about, but we've had discussions about what kind of fit we could have in the draft with some of these safeties. Some of our favorites are guys like Andrew Makuba, Malachi Starks, Billy Bowman Jr. These are all guys that are coverage safeties. They are terrific deep. They're a great complementary piece to play with Trayvon. So I just think it's a really nice signing.
You view him as the free safety in this defense?
More of a strong safety. I think that he's going to play closer to the line. Okay. I think free safety, when I think of that, I'm thinking more of a center fielder. I'm thinking more of a guy that can handle some of like the slot man responsibilities, which Trayvon can. He can do it, but it's not where you're putting him in position to succeed. And I'm a big advocate for putting players in the best positions to succeed and letting them do what they do well. You know what I mean? And I don't know why I got those flipped.
I thought he would play closer line too. For some reason, those flipped in my head. But yeah, I think he's better. He's better up in the box and moving 100%. Around, and that's I think where they're going to use him. And hopefully, because I think that's didn't he flip like he was? I think early on and then they flipped him like recently with this new defensive coordinator last year.
Yeah, and even at TCU, he was more of a free safety.
Yes.
And like all of that, and I know that we have been in a chat with other people that somebody had brought that up and said like, hey, I thought that would translate more in the NFL. I don't disagree with that. Like, I think that was surprising that with as much athleticism as he does have, that he has had issues with the man coverage and kind of those close quarters in coverage. But I think that when you look at it from a deep standpoint and playing high, I don't think that shows up nearly as often. And I don't think that you're going to ask him to do that. They have not signed anybody at that free safety position. That kind of tells me that they have a plan in mind at that position. I don't know what it is, but they have something in mind. And if they prioritize Merrig over Holland, then I think that tells you that possibly their plan is to have that complementary piece come in, even maybe in the draft.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree with you. I think they'll probably I would think they're going to sign someone within these next couple of days in free agency, but I don't know if that's the true answer at that position. It's just a holdover until they draft. Just a couple of notes I took from watching him. I think he's very smart. He's quick. he's fluid as hell, dude. That guy can flip his hips and take off like no. I mean, it's impressive. He can break on the ball. I put in my notes down in the box too. I think he's special down there. And I love this was one of my favorite signings. I know I was pissed off that day and it kind of overlooked, but once the dust settled, I really like this pick for Carolina. A lot of people are going to argue maybe they overpaid for him. I don't know if Holland fits into what Carolina is trying to do. I just don't. I had issues with what he did once Fangio left, and I don't think that was going to translate. I know Carolina may have been interested in him at some point. I don't know if that got too out of hand for them, but clearly, I mean, he signed for $15 million in New York. So
yeah.
I like this move, and I think he's going to fit this defensive mentality, and he is going to give you every last bit of what he has, and I think Carolina values that. And I think I honestly think he's going to pan out better than what Holland is. So I love the signing.
I'd like to know what the chat feels too. Like, chat, when we do one of these players, these new additions. Now, I'm not a huge fan of like giving a grade before a guy plays because I know that that's difficult to do. But let's do like give a grade based off of what there was available at the free agent positions for the guys that we're signing. How do you feel about it? It could be A through F or 1 to 10. Tell us what the temp check is on this. Do you like the signings that Carolina has made? Do you feel good about them? Do they make sense? Or are you sitting there like, man, we're spending money on guys that are B-rate players?
And looks like Mac Jones just landed in San Francisco.
That's the big news. Shanahan finally got his guy that they claim he wanted. He wanted to trade up for him, is what everyone said. So now Mac Jones' era begins, and maybe they don't have to pay Brock Purdy $45 million a year.
All right, so the Minnesota to Carolina pipeline is still running strong, back-to-back years here. Patrick Jones II, 2 years, $20 million for Carolina. And one insider, and I can't remember who it was. I just put insider, and it might have been Garofalo. I can't remember who. It might have been Schultz, one of those guys, Jordan Schultz. Might have been Jordan Schultz.
Somebody from a Starbucks.
Yeah, one of the Starbucks. Those man, dude, that story's wild. But anyway, they said, quote, "This is a sneaky good find for Carolina." From what I've been reading, he's a linear pass rusher. He's got some closing speed to him. He has traits coaches want: competitive toughness, effort level. Had seven sacks this past year, and it sounded like he had more of his snap count. He had a limited role that way, and actually I can pull I have it here. So his PFF stats up, but I don't know a ton about him, Ricky, to be totally honest with you. Just from what I've read on him, I think he is a decent rotational piece. But I still think, honestly, I think edge rusher is probably the biggest hole they still need to fill on this defense. Yeah. So I do think he adds some value with depth, and I don't, any way we can find a way to get DJ Johnson off the field, I'm all for it, because I just not a big fan of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, this signing I was kind of in between on, and we'll see what happens and what kind of role he's going to have on this defense.
Yeah, I think that when you look at it, I don't know that I'm expecting Patrick Jones to come in and be a dominant force for the Carolina Panthers. I would actually be shocked if that did happen. I think that as a rotational player, though, when you talk about it, you're talking about maybe him taking snaps away from a DJ Johnson or God forbid, snaps away from a Thomas Incoom or any of these other guys that were playing at the end of last season. So when we talk about raising the floor of the defense, sometimes the depth and rotational players are just as important, because if you have an injury or you have somebody go down, you're not throwing Thomas Incoom out there to play a pivotal
and that's
position.
Right. And that's what I think this guy does for you.
That's what it feels like, right? Like this guy comes in and he gives you adequate play that doesn't make you completely strikeless against the passer. You can still get after
your floor is higher than pulling some guy off the practice squad.
And I still think that what you have to do, because you hit the nail on the head, though, I still think this is one of those position groups that absolutely needs the most reworking because there's still no juice here. Like, I still want juice. I want somebody that can come screaming off of the edge, and we just don't have that. That's not Patrick Jones. I thought that I had his stat pulled up for his pass rush win rate, and individually, I didn't think it was terrific. Again, I think this guy was a little bit not DJ Wanham-esque, but again, he comes from that Minnesota defense, and I think that he had some great opportunities because of the scheme and because of the aggressiveness and the blitzing of that defense. I think that he found himself in good opportunities. But hey, look, man, you have to finish those opportunities still, right? Like, that's not a given just because you're in position. You still have to bring the quarterback down. You got 7 of them, man. Like, that still would have damn near led our football team last season. So, like, I'm not going to turn my nose up to a decent player who signed a not large, not small contract. I think that he's a decent depth piece and a nice rotational player that does raise the floor of our defense.
All right, let's move to the big hog molly, as Dave Gettleman would say, on the defensive side of the ball. Bobby Brown. Who thought I was going to say Dave Gettleman tonight? I didn't.
Yeah,
how
about that?
That was happening.
Wow.
Bobby Brown III, a true nose tackle. We can finally throw away Shy Tuttle. Oh, wait, he resigned. And he took a pay cut along with it. But again, Ricky, it's one of those things we talk about Shy Tuttle, but like, and maybe you disagree with this, but I don't mind Shy Tuttle in like a very limited role in points. Like if he's coming in for a rest for a play or two, like this guy was the starter here. And now he can take a step back, and he's a big motherfucker in Bobby Brown. This guy's a big ass dude. He is. Years, $21 million contract. Comes from Los Angeles. It looks like he had some overlap with Evero there. Here's your run stuffer. You need a run stuffer. This is the guy that they're hoping has a big presence in the middle of that defensive line. He was top 7 among D tackles this past year in missed tackle rate, which is impressive as hell for Carolina, who, we all know the struggles of, this defense against a run. It was pitiful. It sucked. It was brutal. Every word under the sun negatively you could use here. Had a decent amount of solo tackles, 36 among D tackles in the league. I feel like he still didn't play a ton. I feel like this was more of a he rotated in and out too as well. He only played 42% of the Rams defensive snaps, which I feel like is low. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
No.
So, I mean, I feel like this guy is going to have a pretty big role pending who they get in the draft. And he's a space eater, and that's what they need.
So he is a space eater, and I will preface this by saying I think this might be my favorite signing so far of free agency. I'll give you a couple reasons why too. And first, before I get into this, we've got everyone talking about the Adam Thielen, the news. Adam Thielen is officially back and revised his contract. So I don't know if there's numbers out there yet for exactly what he took to change the contract up.
Yeah, chat, where are you at? Throw that in here because I'm not seeing it. So
yeah, if somebody can shoot the Adam Thielen contract stuff in here, that would be greatly appreciated. While we're waiting on that, but that's great news. First of all, Bryce Young's best target on this football team is back, so big news there. I think that for Bobby Brown, man, here's my thinking with him. Everyone loves this prospect out of Texas, Alfred Collins, correct? Terrific run stopper. Think there's a little bit of untapped pass rush possibility, but he hasn't shown it at a consistent basis. Bobby Brown was a 4-star recruit, played at Texas A&M, a 4th-round draft pick. This dude plays nose tackle. In 2023, he played a lot of nose. But in 2024, he played a lot different. He played nose for a decent amount, but he was even playing out at 4-eye. He played some 3-tech. This guy has the defensive line versatility. You brought it up, though. His missed tackle percentage, it shows. He's got the long arms. He's got the strength. He's got the anchor. He can hold up. He could play 2-gap. He could easily occupy the 2-gap system, which we're going to ask him to do, and that will help keep our linebackers clean. But I think that Bobby Brown also still has potential to get after the quarterback more than what he was asked to do in LA. In LA, they had Jared Verse. They had Braden Fisk that came in. They had that dynamic duo that when it was time to pass rush, those were the guys that they were setting the bat signal for. Bobby Brown was not tasked with that. Bobby Brown had one task. That was to hold up blocks, take up space, and beat people back into the back of the backfield so that they could get tackles for loss. That was what his mission was in LA. And I think that's something that they just preach there for their role players. I think when Bobby Brown comes here, you can see him easily play the nose in our base, right? But then I think the really cool thing that happens here with this defensive line, and we've heard Mike Kay talk about them wanting to use platoons, right? That's a specific word, platoons. They want there to be groups of pass rushers that they can cycle in and out and really figure out where they make their hay and to keep offensive lines exhausted. I think if you can sub out A'Shawn Robinson and Bobby Brown, and then you have Derek Brown and Turk Wharton on the other side, I think that you're really creating some mismatch nightmares, some fatigue nightmares, if you will. And in the chat, somebody else says, or Keaton Bollock says Fangio-esque. I couldn't agree more. I think that they're building that defensive line in that same similar vein. I just think that what he provides as a run stopper from day one is incredibly valuable. And I think that his possibility as a pass rusher, even if he only gets 2 or 3 sacks, that would be career highs. His quarterback pressures, I mean, he had 7 quarterback pressures last year. And like you said, he only played 41% of the snaps. And I would guess that 80 to 90% of that was on run downs. So you're talking about a guy that got those pressures when he wasn't being asked to do them and he wasn't in favorable situations. I think he's got a ton of ability. I think that he's got more than what we've seen. And for 3 years, $21 million, what it also tells me that 3 years is different than the 1 and 2 year deals we're seeing. I think they really like Bobby and they locked him in and said, hey, we really want this to be a guy that's part of our team, but we also want the benefit of this small contract before he reaches that pinnacle. And then we can work with him again. This dude is young too, man. Like he's only been in the league for what, 3 years or something like that, I think. Like this isn't has met his ceiling kind of guy. And that's a common theme with a lot of these free agents. We are taking upside risks, which I think you kind of have to do if you're trying to find guys that are better than their contract and that you've seen flashes from. I think you got to try to start looking at other things.
Yeah, and real quick, jumping back on Adam Thielen. So no contract has been out. It's just Jeremy Fowler had tweeted out that he's set to return for his 12th year and he's finalizing a revised contract. I think Mike Kay had tweeted out he was due a $1.5 million bonus this Saturday. So that might be the reason for why there's some action there.
I also could see him wanting a raise. I mean, am I crazy for saying that? Like this dude was on a pretty budget deal and he was been performing as one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. Maybe we'll more see. Guaranteed money.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next guy here. Oh, and I should have thrown this up. I'm sorry. I'm slacking. Here we go. Tershawn Wharton. They call him Turk. Played Kansas City alongside Chris Jones, defensive tackle. They signed him for 3 years, $54 million, $30 million guaranteed. You want to talk about an overpay, folks? No, I don't want to start that because I do really like this player. But this was a guy that the Chiefs signed, I think, for like $2.4 million last year. So a massive pay jump. He was undrafted. He's got a great story. But I'm not here for great stories. I'm here for great football players. So, but yeah, I think he's, he has potential. I think this is another thing where, and Ricky, I think this is maybe the theme of this, these signings is I think this is raising the floor for Carolina on this defense. 7 sacks this past year. I was doing a bunch of reading on this guy, and it sounded like, he was the one trying to contain these QBs and making sure they weren't getting away. So a lot of the times these QBs were either moving up or getting forced out by other pass rushers, and he was doing kind of mop-up cleanup duty. So you got to take those numbers with a grain of salt. He did have 7 sacks this past year. Let's try to pull those up so you guys can see those. Make all these damn graphics. I might as well show them. And so we got to take that with a grain of salt. But I do like this guy. I think he brings some juice. We talk about juice. I think this guy has it. He had a similar havoc rate and time to pressure to Milton Williams. So if you want to compare those numbers a little bit, they were very comparable. You looked at the two dots; they were literally right next to each other.
I can't stop laughing. Havoc. I can't stop laughing.
Havoc.
Yeah.
Sorry, Havoc.
Man, I swear between the Mareg,
I'm talking fast. I'm drinking beer. I'm trying to go.
Can I ease you a little bit? You're crushing it, man. You're doing a great job. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. But when you said havoc, I used to get people used to give me shit, and Curtis, you'll enjoy this story. Anytime that I was drinking heavily, like at the bar or something like that, I was always watching like the late night basketball games, right? I was a degenerate gambler in my heyday. And I was sitting there watching games. I would always, anytime I was drunk and talking too much about sports, I would call it Oregon. Like just without fail, I would never be able to say Oregon. I would say Oregon.
I get shit all the time. I get shit all the time, dude. When I say that word, I almost hesitate to say the word because I know I'm gonna fucking say it wrong.
Because I know I'm gonna say it stupid. Yeah, 100%. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were doing great on Turk Ward.
And I sound stupid as hell, anyways, because I sound like I'm from Canada. So just deal with me, bear with me.
You can already hear my Canadian tuxedo on. So.
But I do like this pick. I really do. I think this guy's got I feel like a lot of the conversation here is these guys have great upside. They really do, and they're young. Yeah. Like that's the huge thing out of this free agency class for Carolina is they went younger. That was their goal in all of this. And I think this is what they're getting out of this guy, a guy who's, trending in the right direction. And, they're hoping they strike big on some of these guys and they really pan out. And I know we all are, but decent hurry. I mean, 28 hurries this year. You wonder though, like I said, and this goes back to Milton Williams. What can he do without that Eagles defensive line? What can this guy do without the Chiefs defensive line? And he's got a pretty bit, he's got some decent guys alongside him in Derek Brown. I mean, there's no slight to him at all. But what does this guy do when he's not in an environment that has, I feel like, aided some of those guys along? So that's always the big question mark with these players. So that's something. But yeah, I like this signing. Ricky, what did you think of Wharton? Did you like one? Let's just jump back here for a second with the contract. What did you think of the contract initially? And then what do you think of him as a player?
Yeah, this is the one that I'm the most nervous about. And it's not because I don't think that Turk is a good football player, but okay. This is what I wanted to talk about when we brought up Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis and about overpaying and how that doesn't matter, right? Because they balled out. I agree 100% that it won't matter with Turk. If he balls out, it will not matter that he's paid $30 million guaranteed, 3 years, $54 million. What I think it is, though, this guy hasn't proven that he can do that for more than one season to play at that level to make that money. And I'm not even sure that even that level of 6.5 sacks or 7 sacks, however, whichever site you're looking at wants to quantify it, is even that much money. I think working in a platoon again, like we talked about, that key word, it can work. This guy's not going to be on the field in positions. Who was it? Somebody put on here. Brady says, I worry teams are going to run at him like teams did with Shy Tuttle. I hear you, Brady, and where I have a little bit of solace with that because I would normally agree. I don't think that they run at him the similar way as Shy Tuttle because Shy Tuttle was our nose tackle. So they could run anything inside, and it was at Shy Tuttle, and teams knew that was a weakness. That was a guy playing out of position. I don't see them playing Turk Wharton inside at 0 or 1 tech. I don't see that. I think the closest inside you see him is probably a 4-eye right on that inside shoulder of the tackle, maybe a 3 tech all the way out to 5 tech. He's not a stand-up guy, even though he's undersized. They have him listed at 6'1", 280 pounds. He was an undrafted free agent. So, I mean, it's a terrific story that he came in and won out. He got into camp as a rookie. Now, another part is that he tore his ACL 5 weeks into the 2022 season, right? So the guy does have a tiny bit of an injury history. His 23 when he came back was relatively pedestrian. It was very similar to his rookie season in production. But now you bring him in, and that's after signing. You said it, Curtis. He signed a 1-year, $2.74 million deal at the start of 24. The team in Kansas City, you talk to Chris Jones, all them that have said things about this guy, they love him. They love him, man. Like, he's a hard worker. They love the story. They loved what he showed. But his career high in sacks prior to this one season breakout was 2. It was 2 sacks. And if you're talking about a pass rush specialist, because that is what he is a pass rush specialist from the interior. If his career high for all seasons before that was 2 sacks in the season. Well,
according to PFF, it's 4, but sometimes I don't know how the hell they're tracking.
PFF also gives half sacks. They round up to a sack.
Oh, okay.
So that's why sometimes you'll see 6.5, you'll see 7. I go off of the NFL Pro. That is where I could literally like pull up the play with that stat and see it. And it had him listed at the 2 sacks for 2023, 2021, and 2020. He had 2 sacks. Now that's not to say though that his ability isn't more in line with the 6.5, because he could be, but he played 61.1% of the team snaps, right? We're talking about these platoons. We're talking about how often a player is on the field. 61.1% of the team snaps, 6.5 sacks on 35 quarterback pressures. He was 64th of all qualifying defensive linemen, and that includes defensive ends like Trey Hendrickson and stuff, but not outside linebackers, right? So 64th at quarterback pressure percentage, at the quarterback pressure percent rate, with an 8.2%. So like, he's not super duper. Look, he's interior, so it's really tough to say, because like I think that like the defensive ends that you're talking about have like a 14 to 16%. It's not like college where some of these guys have 23 and 27% quarterback pressure win rates. That's not it. But 8.2 is also relatively pedestrian. I think it's probably a little bit better than average, but that's still not. I don't know that equates to that contract. I know Alex said earlier, fans hate an overpay, and I get it. Alex isn't wrong, man. Like, overpays don't matter so much, and fans shouldn't have to worry about this all that much. But it does matter if it's something like this, because if this guy doesn't pan out, all of the warning signs were there for him not being worth that money. Like, all of the warning signs are right there in front of you. What this signing to me feels a whole lot like is we missed out on Milton Williams. Turk Wharton is what we have circled as the next best interior pass rusher.
Yep.
And we have extra money. So we're going to throw, look, you know the saying, right? Cash rules everything around me. Cream. This isn't just ice cream. We're not just giving this dude ice cream. We put a bucket of cherries and a shit ton of sprinkles on top of that cream. Like, this guy got some extra stuff. I don't think that what he would have garnered from other teams is close to what we paid him. I think you probably could have been looking at like a 10 million, 11 million a year. And we gave him significantly more than that. Now the guaranteed money is in line with that. And that's what makes me think that for the AAB, right? I don't know about the incentives. I don't know all the particulars to it. I also think that he could work out extremely well, because if he gives us what we're looking for, outstanding. But there is enough pause there for me to say, I want to see a little bit more before I'm like giddy about the biggest contract we gave out.
Yeah. And I, just want to break away for a second, because I know we were talking. We've been jumping all over the place here a little bit, but I did want to. The chat's been on it, so I appreciate the chat tonight. I really do. But just an update, Ricky, you nailed it on the AT him coming back for a 12th season. Mike K put this out. My understanding is reworking. Is the reworking is a raise without an additional years, so they're giving him a raise. He's earned it. That's Adam Thielen, of course. And I do want to throw this out there, if I can share my screen properly for 1 second. So look,
AT, while you're doing that, AT was set to make $6.75 million this year. You can't tell me that dude hasn't played much better than that, right? So like he earned that raise, but it is something worth monitoring that they're giving him money.
So I'm going to share this because I know everyone's this is blowing up, and I don't want to miss the opportunity. And hopefully you can see that. But Jaycee Horn shared this to his Instagram, and it says, so it was Rico Dowdle signing, and he said, getting serious, let's do it 5. And if you don't know who number 5 is, that's T. Higgins on the Cincinnati Bengals. So this is interesting.
Are we sure that that's referencing Cincinnati? Are we sure that's referencing T. Higgins because he said 5? Hold on. I just want to know. Hold on. What number did Rico Dowdle wear at South Carolina, guys?
He might have worn 5. He did wear 5.
That's what I want to know.
He did wear 5.
Yeah,
see, the chat is warping me here. That's what's going on. See this chat?
Number 5, Rico Dowdle, South Carolina.
Yep.
That's a South Carolina alum. That is not a reference to T. Higgins, everybody. That is because Rico Dowdle wore number 5 at South Carolina. You can thank your friendly neighborhood sports encyclopedia that is Ricky Raines, who has nothing knowledgeable in here other than sports.
But someone had maybe it's something else on Instagram, but someone had posted that Jaycee Horn was dialed in on this. Man, you guys are so warped. We gotta quit.
That's because he said 5. It's only because he said 5. And hey, look, I get it, man. I'm looking for any kind of breadcrumb I can to get excited about too. But there's gotta be something else other than just the number 5.
All right. Well, I dabbled with your guys' breadcrumbs, so we're done with the breadcrumb.
Yep. Get that grummalata out of here.
Let's move on here. If I can hopefully figure out this. Let's see here. There we go. So another guy, this was a signing that happened today. Christian Roseboom. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And yeah, Carter, you better be sticking around. We're going to be talking about Rico soon here, and you're going to love that guy now that he's a Panther, so don't be talking shit. And let's talk about him for a second. I'll be brutally honest with you. I don't have too much on him. It's obviously a very minimal contract, 1 year, $2 million with $1.5 million in incentives, so it can get up to $3.5. This guy is, I personally think, is going to be a rotational dude. I think Carolina values their 3rd-round draft pick last year in Trevin Wallace, and obviously Josey Jewell is the other starter. I think this guy will be a rotational piece. Think Chairless, think some of those other inside linebackers they've had in the past. I know this guy had crazy amount of tackles this past year, like 135, I think it was. But I don't see this more than a depth piece, to be brutally honest. And you probably can't read that, so I'm going to make this full screen from his PFF stats. But it sounded like, from what I was reading today, that this guy struggled mightily early in the season and then kind of picked it up in the back half.
That's the same thing that I was told by people that covered LA.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a depth piece. I don't hate it because I don't think Carolina's had a depth piece who had 130 tackles in a season. So that's awesome. Right. But I wouldn't freak out and think this guy's the starter because I don't see that happening at all.
I don't think that was the intention. And part of the reason I don't think that's the intention is because of the money given. That just doesn't seem to signal that this guy was pegged for that kind of role. But you bring up a great point, Curtis, and that's that if he is your contingency plan for Josey Jewell or Trevin Wallace, if one of them were to get injured, which both of them dealt with injuries last season, and we saw what Trevin did when he had the green dot. I don't know how much responsibility Christian Roseboom had in LA with that. I have not asked enough questions to find out that, so I don't want to speak without the knowledge. But if he has those capabilities, if he's a better field general than Trevin Wallace, then maybe what they're trying to do is get Trevin to play more instinctively, take some things off of his plate, because where Trevin struggled very much, in my opinion, was overthinking everything and getting bogged down by his own thoughts that actually caused him to lose what makes him a special prospect of his high-end athleticism and his speed side to side. He was slow on a lot of plays because mentally he was slow on a lot of plays. And so I think that if you could take things off of his plate, maybe that's what they're trying to do here. Maybe they put Christian Roseboom in on a little bit more of the run plays than Trevin Wallace as well, because I thought that Trevin was out of position a lot and he didn't see to see things very well. But Trevin excels in coverage. And that's where I think Josey has had issues. So maybe if you're going to play two linebackers in coverage type situations, maybe Christian and Trevin is the package. Maybe Christian comes in there on dime packages even at times, right? To do it himself if like guys have been playing a lot. I think that this just gives you that rotation where you're not losing a lot to get him in. I said that he could be a camp body. It's entirely possible too with that contract that they bring him in. He has familiarity. Maybe they think that he fits the system. Maybe he comes in and he gets beat out. Let's say they draft a rookie or two, right? Or they make another signing. These signings that don't cost a lot of money, we've seen them in the past where we make these signings and they don't stick on the roster. So like before I come to this big announcement about like what this guy can and can't be, I want to see what happens come June, July, right? I don't think this is a bad signing, especially for the money, but I'm not going to count Christian Roseboom's chickens yet.
Yeah, and this kind of reminds me, and I freaked out about this signing last year, I'll admit it, and that was Kalavion Chason, and they ended up not even
playing it.
Yeah, he wasn't on the team. He was cut.
Which he went and played well in Las Vegas, which has to really grind our gears too.
That was a fluke. I don't buy that shit. But but yeah, I just think, like you said, he just could be a camp body. You can't. 135 tackles don't happen by mistake. I'm sorry, they just don't. So I mean that is impressive, and maybe he can show some things to Trevin, and I think he's just, if he does become a part of this 53-man roster, I think it's a rotation. I do think Wallace. They value Wallace a lot, whether you like him or not. I think this front office is values.
It would be crazy if they didn't, right? I mean, after allocating that 3rd round pick, it would be crazy if they didn't value Trevin Wallace. Now, I don't know if that's the right or wrong approach. I have my feelings on Trevin. We can get into that on another episode. But I think Alec here says something though that's interesting, and he says, "I think this means we are most likely not drafting a linebacker high. Would love Demetrius Knight Jr." First of all, I do love Demetrius Knight, good ball player. I don't think this means that, though. I don't think that a depth signing, when you only have like 2 real NFL linebackers on your roster, dude, we're talking about Chandler Wooten and Claudine Sherless were the other 2 linebackers that we had. When we had to play them last year, when they were on the field at the end of the year last year, it was awful, guys.
I see what annoys me, Ricky. I apologize to cut you off.
No.
People are like pounding the table for these guys. We got to remember this defense was terrible. Like we need to move on from the back end of this roster.
That's right.
That's why you need to bring in this guy. And I agree with you. Like, I don't think this precludes them from not drafting a linebacker. I think you go out and get another one. Like you need a double. You need to
look.
Defense,
if Trevin Wallace and Josie Jewell didn't stop me from signing or from drafting a stud linebacker in the draft, Christian Roseboom definitely ain't moving that needle for me in that direction. If you're looking at a Jalen Walker or a Jihad Campbell, if those are the 2, and I think those are the 2 names that we talk about the most, right, for these like top tier linebackers in this draft, if those are really candidates that you're looking at that also have pass rush versatility, that's something that these guys don't have. None of the 3 linebackers we're talking about here, Josie Jewell, Christian Roseboom, or Trevin Wallace, have pass rushing proficiency. We need somebody that can do that. We have to have somebody that can get after the quarterback from the 2nd level or that can move up to the front. We have to have that. All successful, terrific, dangerous defenses have that. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Look at the Washington Commanders with Frankie Louvu, our guy, Frankie Louvu. Like, look at like the teams that are doing these things right now. They are doing it with versatility and disguise. You don't know what their responsibilities are, and these guys can fly at the quarterback from anywhere. We don't have that. When we talk about juice, you have to bring in juice. I think Christian Roseboom is solid and consistent, and he's a really good depth piece.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here because we still got a lot more to talk about. Before we get to the break, though, I just want to shout out everyone tuning in right now, the chat. Don't forget, we do have a super chat. We got 1,800 people listening right now. Kicking ass, you guys. We appreciate every single one of you that is tuning in. If you do not subscribe to our YouTube channel, I know we don't have 1,800 subscribers, so if you could help us get to that point, we would appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We're going to be back after this quick 30-second break, so stick around. Don't forget, I know we do football and we talk Panthers, but we do have a great landing page if you want a sports bet. March Madness is coming up. There's going to be a massive opportunity for folks in the Carolinas to take advantage of that, specifically North Carolina, that allows gambling. I don't know if is South Carolina legalized gambling.
I don't think so. No, I think they still got to come up here. But if you guys want to meet at the bar here in Charlotte, I'll let you set up some bets on the landing page.
Exactly. So take advantage of that. We'll be back after this 30-second break. Exciting news, Panther fans. I'm thrilled to announce our partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join sportsbooks in your area to get the best odds and new user offers. Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/Panthers to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings. If you're ready to take sports betting to the next level and show some love to Panthers on Tap, I highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through our Sign Up Expert link. All right, this was the moment I've been waiting for all night.
Yeah, this is your swan song, dude. This is it.
Rico Dowdle. I sent a tweet out earlier today. Luck of the draw. Carolina heard me. Dan Morgan saw our tweet and was like, "Damn it, I need to go and get this guy." Yep. But yeah, Carolina, Miles Sanders, they try to get him back. We'll talk about him later on. But they go out and get Dowdle as their backup running back to Chuba Hubbard. Had a 1,000-yard rushing season this past year for Dallas. Had a kind of a, I don't know if you want to call it, maybe a 2024 arc like Bryce Young, where it was very slow at the start of the season for him. I don't think Dallas gave him enough opportunities, which makes no sense for Dallas. That team doesn't make a lot of sense anyway. And like from week 10 on, just like turned it on, and he was one of the best backs in the league, honestly, statistically, the back half of the season. Mm-hmm. And Carolina gets him for pretty cheap. He's an Asheville product. 1 year, $2.75 million. Has $3.25 million in incentives, so we can get up to $6 million total this year. I don't know how you would hate this contract. I don't know how you'd hate this guy coming off of the year he had, and he's your number 2 back. Like this is I love every bit of this.
So first, congratulations. Rico Dowdle is a Panther, all because of you, Curtis, and all because you wanted it so badly. You started speaking this into existence when we played the Dallas Cowboys. Let me clarify my situation with Rico Dowdle. I absolutely hated Rico Dowdle. Would you like to know why? Would you like to know why I hated Rico Dowdle? Because he played for the Dallas Cowboys. You know what else I'll tell you? CeeDee Lamb sucks. CeeDee Lamb is a bum. You know why? Because he plays for the Dallas Cowboys. I will not wax poetically about any Dallas Cowboy. I won't do it. I will figure out a way to make hay and to make poor decisions and poor statements about these Dallas Cowboys. First, hold on. Panther Bo is here. Panther Bo is here, but Panther Bo says, I'm here. Jesus, I keep forgetting y'all still going on Thursdays. Bo, I just want to make sure you're aware today is Wednesday. It's okay if you think it's Thursday, but I just want you to know it's Wednesday in case you have anything going on actually on Thursday during the day. Just be prepared tomorrow. It could hit you quick. All right, so Rico Dowdle. Here's the thing, man. I am very happy about this signing. I think that it's a terrific compliment with Chuba, and not in the traditional complimentary sense. This is not your flash and dash, right? This is not your smash and dash, if you will. This isn't D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart. This is more of the Bash Brothers. These guys play such similar play styles and offer such similar things. It is yards after contact. That is what these guys do. A quick little breakdown of Rico earlier, though, right? He's an undrafted free agent at South Carolina, as we debunked the T. Higgins rumors earlier with the Let's Go 5 from Jaycee Horn. Rico Dowdle did wear the number 5 at South Carolina. He came in as an undrafted free agent, made the roster, so similar to Turk Wharton, which is always a good story, right? When you have an undrafted free agent that makes the roster, that's always showing that the guy is talented and has a great work ethic, and the team recognized it. His rookie season, though, he had 7 carries. He had 4 kickoff returns, however, and this is interesting that I came across this. I wonder if they have any plans on having him do kick return duties, because they released Raheem Blackshear. They're probably looking for that answer in that department. His kickoff returns for the 4 that he had that season were 38 yards per kickoff return. That's a pretty astonishing number. Now, look, that was in the old format, but the guy's a good running back, so maybe they explore that. 2021, hip injury in the preseason put him on IR all year. 2022, he suffered an ankle injury in week 5 after no offensive involvement, IR for the whole year. 2023, he benefited from Zeke being released. He finally got some work. He got 89 carries, which is career high at the time, for 361 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Missed another game in week 17 with an ankle injury. Now, 2024, this is when he boomed. This is when he did it, right? 16 games, 235 carries, 1,079 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Minute for pause, 3 fumbles, and he lost 2 of them. He ranked tied for 11th in the NFL in yards after contact per attempt at 3.5 yards. That's really good. And that's what we're talking about being similar to Chuba. If you want more linear comparison to Chuba Hubbard, how about this? He tied for 16th in the NFL with 26 rushes of 10-plus yards. You know who he tied with? Chuba Hubbard and Breece Hall. But Chuba Hubbard is the one we're going to talk about because we're a Panthers show. He had 39 receptions as well, 249 yards on 49 targets, 3 receiving touchdowns. That was the 30th most.
See, I think that's where he's undervalued. I think he's a better back out of the backfield catching it than Chuba is, and I think that's where they're going to try to use him.
I agree.
I personally think he's got better value there. And I know Chuba's been working on that with the jugs machines, and he has gotten better over the years, but I think this is the guy you pop him off in a screen pass and let him work type thing.
Right. That's right. And hold on. Yeah, you're right. Panthers, Bo. No offense, Dallas residents. This is only to Dallas players. No Dallas residents. Panther Bo, you're good in my book. But yeah, I think the Rico Dowdle, what a smart signing. And the beautiful part to me too, that's maybe lost in it. And I said something about this on Twitter. It's a 1-year deal, right? It's incentive laden, but it's a 1-year deal, which basically tells Jonathan Brooks, who they invested in, and a second round pick.
Take your time coming back.
Take your time, bro. Like, get right. Get your body right. Get your mental right. Take the entire year off. We just want you to do that. We want you to know that going into it. No pressure. Even if you feel like you're ready, take extra time, man. We're not ready. Like, we want you to sit, get right, get your mind right, because the mental is going to be the tough hurdle getting over 2 back-to-back ACL tears like this. That's going to take some time, man, to feel comfortable. Rico Dowdle gives you we're going to keep pounding over and over and over. I still wouldn't be surprised if they have their eyes set on a speedy, shifty change of pace back in the draft. This is a terrific draft to need that, especially in the later to mid rounds. I think that's where you could see them look. I enjoy this signing very, very much, and I think it was really, really good work by Dan Morgan and company to bring this in.
I want to shout out Bill's Bunker here. He's new here. Just subscribe, supporting other NFL content creators. We appreciate it. This is just another shout out and advertisement. Guys, go give our YouTube channel a subscribe.
Shout out Bill's Bunker too, man. When you're subscribing to us, go ahead and over there and hit their subscribe button too, man. We'll come and subscribe to your show as well, man. NFL content creators, dude. It's a grind and it's a lot of stuff, but we all love this stuff. We always have connections with the Bills anyways with Dan Morgan, so why not have a little mutual subscription here, right?
Amen. So let's move on here, and I don't even know where we're headed next because I think this is.
Did we see Zach Griffin's comment here about the T. Higgins? Did we talk about that?
We did not, so we'll jump in here. I'm tired of giving this guy some this Brian Moffitt dude. But Zach Griffin, we'll throw it out there. You guys want to hear about it. Is saying draft compensation is holding up the deal for what it's worth. You guys want to believe that? That's fine. I don't think there's any deal in place. I really don't. Let's talk about a punter, huh? Why not? Yeah. So this was, and I know you agree with me on this because like you put this out there. This was one of the head scratchers for me as well. 1 year, $3 million, 35 years old, same age as Johnny Hekker, and is very similar statistically to Johnny Hekker. The only thing I give him is he punted in Buffalo, which is shitty weather majority of the time. It's cold and it's hard to kick in the cold. So I'm curious, and I didn't look this up. Someone asked me, they're curious what his punting numbers are in a warmer weather climate or in a dome or outside. I'm curious to see what those inside the 20s would be. But yeah, it's just like, for what they did in free agency, it just kind of threw me off. I don't know. I was not expecting this, but again, it's that you talked about it. It's that Buffalo pipeline. And I know people might not care as much about these positions, but I think special teams is pretty big for the Carolina Panthers. And I think if any time, especially the way this defense is played, and hopefully there's an upgrade this year, but like, getting teams with inside the 20 is very important, and I think it can be a weapon on any team. and pinning an offense back and making them work the whole entire field, which was pretty easy to do against Carolina's defense this past year. But hopefully they've learned from that. I think this is a big weapon. I think there needs to be more emphasis on the special team. So I was not a big fan of this signing. There's some slight upgrades a little bit, but like the dude's super old, and I don't know.
Right.
I didn't get the signing for me. It didn't make sense.
Like it's a punter, so I'm not going to react in a major way, regardless, because it's a punter, right? But I agree with you wholeheartedly that there's a part of this though that does matter, and it's that field position game, right? Like that ends up showing up a lot in NFL games, where if it's a one possession game or something late in the fourth quarter, and you've got to get rid of it, and you trust your defense, which I know that saying that as a Carolina Panthers fan is almost blasphemous for me to even say. If you trust your defense to handle one final possession, like I wouldn't trust my defense against the two cats that I have living in this house, right? Like I would be pretty sure they could get into field goal position. But if you do, and you want to take that risk, getting that opponent as far back into their territory as possible is key. You got to have that. And you have to feel confident in your punter that you're sending out there to do that. I'm not trying to be like ageist when I say this, but how many times have we been having internal conversations with this fan base about the age of this roster and how we have to emphasize getting young and all of these things, only to turn around and sign a 35-year-old punter for $3 million who, look, I know that he has got a lot of people that like him and that have said nice things about him and enjoy him. That's cool, man. And maybe he is going to thrive here. Maybe. But maybe this is also going back to that Buffalo familiarity well, one time too many. Maybe you could have done the cheaper option when it comes to punters and said, I'm going to take a look at our undrafted free agents. I'm going to take a look at the free agent group after this all settles, right? And I'm going to see if there's not somebody that I can sign for the league minimum, right? Like there's got to be somebody that if you're pinching pennies and you're trying not to spend on certain contracts.
Or the UFL. That's panned out too. Or the UFL,
or anything, man. Like there just has to be other ways. I thought that giving out $3 million to a punter was interesting. I did not foresee that happening. Now, $3 million to a punter that maybe you sign for like 3 or 4 years because they're young enough to be a part of what you think you're building on special teams, sure. But this guy for 1 year, and no offense, Sam Martin, I have heard nothing but nice things about you, man. I don't want this to come across personal. You're not Eddie Pinheiro to me. I have no beef with you. But where I'm confused is on the strategy of the football team, because even though this is a punter and it shouldn't matter, I think that the message you're relaying is a little bit weird when we've got guys that are saying that this linebacker we just signed for $2.75 million is going to be a starter against our third round pick from last season. But our punter that we signed for $3 million is of no merit. It doesn't matter, right? Like that, it's just a weird correlation, man. Like I just want to find the middle ground of where does it matter and where does it not, and who gets to make the decision on when we're actually supposed to be focused on the beginning.
And I just want to throw this out there. I am fine upgrading from Hecker. I believe was one of the first to come out, and maybe I'm just in my own lane, but I called him out several weeks ago and said that we need to look another direction. I feel like that everyone has kind of shifted that way to Hecker of this guy wasn't that great last year. He wasn't. And I get he was all decade punter and all this. Yeah, that was 2010s. Let's be real here. We've gotten past that. So now I also think Ricky, the homecoming, he was at App State, and this kind of goes to Panthers Bowl comment. I think that played in. I think this guy wanted to play closer to home and probably be around family, and so that kind of makes sense. And Dan Morgan loves him, a Buffalo player, and I'm shocked Hamlin wasn't on this team, to be totally honest with you.
Well, I appreciate. I appreciate
sure that might have been his signing.
I appreciate Bo's insight here. I don't know much about Sam Martin, man. I don't spend a whole ton of time researching and looking into punters. I saw the regular basic quantifying stats with him, and they didn't look anything severely different than Sam Hecker, like you just talked about, Curtis. So I kind of ignored it after that.
Johnny
point.
Hecker.
Hey, look, Johnny Hecker, Sam Hecker. Look at me. I'm already trying to call these two guys the same person. Like, is Sam Martin, is he 6'4" and is he going to shoulder check dudes out of bounds too? Because if he is, sign me up. I'm cool with it. But if he's doing the same things that Hecker was doing with his leg, then I'm a little bit trepidatious about this. But I mean no disrespect to App State. I mean no disrespect to Sam Martin or Panther Bo. You guys are all friends. But this is an interesting one for me. I do want to point out real quickly, Zach had a great comment for us up here. He says, if you aren't subscribed to Panther, and then all of a sudden his dog hit send, but he finished this in a Josh Norris fashion, right? Says Panthers on tap, then F you. Sorry, my dog decided to hit send before I was ready. Josh Norris always says this thing, hey, if you're not subscribed to this, what are you doing? Like, you're a loser. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, but you're a loser if you're not signed to it. Hey, if you're not subscribed to Panthers on tap, Zach Griffin says F you. Not us. It was Zach. So hit that subscribe button for us.
Yeah, when I was reading that, Ricky, I was like, dude, this guy's telling me to fuck off. Like, I read it too. So I'm like, shit, he's talking. Did I say something wrong? But then I read it back and I understood it. So your dog threw me for a loop there too.
Yeah. Good for you, little dog.
All right. So here we go. No longer Panthers. We kind of touched on it a little bit.
Yep.
But Miles Sanders, he was released, saved him $5.2 million off the cap. It sounded like Carolina wanted to get a restructure done there. And it didn't happen. You have Xavier Woods. He signed with the Titans literally like 2 hours after I said I think Carolina. I wouldn't be shocked if Carolina re-signed him, and then he goes and signs with that's literally what happened all week to me. So yeah. I hit gold with Dowdle today, but most of the time they're like, oh, Curtis tweeted this. We're just gonna. There was another one where I was like, Josh Sweat should be the next move. And this was after they didn't get Milton Williams. And then like an hour later, half hour later, he signed with, it might have even been like 10 minutes later, he signed with Arizona. And I'm like, okay, I'm done tweeting. Yeah. Lonnie Johnson Jr., I liked him. He signed with the Raiders. And then Johnny Hekker. So both Johnny Hekker and Xavier Woods are now Tennessee Titans. Thoughts on these guys, the departures? I know these aren't, wow, like players that we thought would probably stick around, but any thoughts on this at all, Ricky?
I appreciate all of them for their time here, to be completely honest, and I mean that's
sincerely. All you need to say.
Yeah. Look, Miles Sanders, dude, we have beef with like how Miles performed because he didn't live up to the contract and stuff. That's cool, man. But he came in, he was a professional. He did what they asked him to do, so no beef. Xavier Woods played every single snap last year for a really bad defense that had a lot of like heart missing from it. Appreciate that. Like, that's something that I can at least acknowledge and say that takes a professional to do that, man. Lonnie Johnson Jr., he came in, dude, he had some of the nastiest attitude of everybody. I appreciate that from him. So thank you, Lonnie. Johnny Hekker, dude, you gave us lots of cool stuff, man. We had the baddest punter in the land for a little bit. So best of luck to every single one of them at their own places. But again, they are not Panthers any longer. So see you later.
Well said. I got nothing. I'm so happy I don't have to watch Miles Sanders tap dance in the backfield anymore.
That's not upset about it.
Yep. So, Ricky, if you want to pull up the PFF stuff, we were going to kind of look at both. I tried to do this before. I just didn't have the time. I'm sorry. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I tried to make this graphic. It wasn't happening for me.
But luckily PFF kind of does it for him. This isn't probably as sharp as it needs to be because you can see here they have Patrick Jones II playing defensive tackle, which he's not going to do that. That's likely going to be Bobby Brown. But we could look at this. And Curtis, so what sticks out to you with the starting lineup now?
Yeah, what are you on? Sorry, are you on offense here?
This is both. So the defense is
both.
The top.
Okay.
Yep, the defense is the top and the offense is the bottom, but I can scroll up as much as I can, so it's just defense right now.
Yeah, let's start with the defense.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's without question Carolina is trying to go to this platoon on the defensive line and getting guys fresh in and out. We'll see how that works. I do think, and we talked about this off the top, I think the biggest hole on this defense is not only obviously they need another safety if they don't go with Devontae Richardson. I think he would probably be a backup to them, which I don't mind him. If you've listened to our show, I really like Devontae Richardson. I don't think he's a starter. I think he's a solid depth piece, but that's an upgrade. But I think edge rusher is probably where they're going to hone in on the draft. That's a position they really haven't addressed. I don't consider Patrick Jones a big, a key signing for that spot. So I think edge rusher is some position everyone needs a key in on. I think, and this class is loaded. It's a good draft to have an issue at edge rusher, but Clowney's not getting any younger. I mean, there was rumblings they could possibly deal him this offseason. That didn't happen. So
he's in his final year too, right?
Yeah, and so is Wanham. So
Right.
and who is behind those guys? So
Right.
I think edge rusher is the obvious pick at 8. We all want to throw these, other guys out there, and offense and Tyler Warren and T-Mac, and I love those guys too. But I think it's obvious edge rusher is probably going to be the pick at 8. So that's kind of where I look at. I do think corner, while we're looking at the defense, corner still concerns me. I don't know about you, Ricky, but there's not much behind Jaycee and Mike Jackson and Joe Smith-Wade. Like there's just not. Like it's guys that played in the last couple of games of the year and made Michael Penix make Falcons fans think he's a Hall of Famer already. So I think Carolina needs to address that, and I hope they kind of go. I hope they sign someone in free agency, and I know there's the cream of the crop left, but like at least get someone for depth. And I hope they go after someone in the draft, because I think corner is still concerns me depth wise.
Yeah. Well, I think you also said, and first of all, Nick Short put on there, he said that the front 7 was chopped off and they only saw the defensive backs and safety. Let us know if y'all can see that full defensive lineup now. I didn't realize. Yeah, he says he can see it. It's nothing perfect because it's small. Yeah, I hear you, man. Heard that before, right? No.
Is there a way to zoom? Is there a way to zoom it in, and then we can just on like your computer zoom it in?
I don't think so. I
like
really
zoom
don't
in
think
your
so.
webs.
Let's see.
There you go. And then just show the defense.
How is that? Do you guys?
Hopefully that's better for you guys. I see it a little bit better. I can actually read some of these damn names.
Is that better? Let's see if I can like move it a little bit.
There we go. Now we're
How's
working.
that?
That's a little
bit
better.
Look at that. That's live TV, baby. Okay. So my thoughts on this, and Curtis said it though when you said like there's no reserves behind Mike Jackson, Jaycee Horn, and Joe Smith-Wade. I would like to even bring up something else. Are we completely set on Joe Smith-Wade as our nickel corner? I'm not trying to be a jerk here.
Sadly, I think they are, dude.
I'm not trying to be a jerk, but like
I agree with you though.
Now look, I'm not trying to like push my own individual agenda here, right? But if you know me at all, you know that one of my biggest draft crushes that has been for this entire period and is very much right now, and who I think is the absolute perfect fit for this Carolina defense is Kansas State cornerback Jacob Parrish. I think that he would come in and give us the nickel that we wanted so badly in Mikey Sainer still last season, but also the versatility they wanted with Joe Smith-Wade, that possibly he could play outside if he needed to, but he could kick inside. I think that Jacob Parrish is exactly what they wanted Joe Smith-Wade to be. I always thought that I was crazy because I came out with my lofty comparison, right? That he was Marcus McDuffie-esque. That's what I thought of him. Today, I saw so many people talking about how Marcus McDuffie should move back into the slot because he's an elite slot corner and he's a pretty good outside corner. That's Jacob Parrish to me. And when I had Devin Jackson on Draft Crush with me and Edgar, you know what he gave us as his comp for Jacob Parrish without knowing? Marcus McDuffie or Trent McDuffie, not Marcus. Why do I keep saying Marcus McDuffie? Trent McDuffie. Y'all got to realize these crispy kitties have gotten awfully crispy. Trent McDuffie. And I'm not saying that he's guaranteed to be that, but you can get him in the second or possibly third round. Like we talked about it, his draft range being in that top 75. We have pick 74. That's a gamble if you wait that long, but you could also take him at 57, and I think that it's a perfectly fine pick. Outside of that, though, when you look at the safeties, I'm with you, Curtis. No way we go with Damani Richardson as our starting safety. I just don't see it. I think that he is absolutely worth developing and that I want him on the roster. I think he's a great special teams player, and I think that he could develop. Again, this is an undrafted free agent. You're not asking undrafted free agents to play key roles in your NFL team usually in their second season. So asking him to be our starter at safety, I think is going to be an interesting thing. I think that's a terrific area that if they are serious about safety, Malachi Starks makes a ton of sense there in that first round. Now, whether they trade back or whether they take him at 8, this is one of the best pro-ready prospects. And when I say pro-ready, I don't mean low floor. I mean ready to rock and roll. I mean, this dude is a baller, and this dude is ready to come in and change shit. And with Trayvon,
Ricky, hold on, Ricky. So you say that,
no.
and I'm sorry I cut you off, but are you comfortable with this edge room? Because I am not. Like, and I'm not comfortable with the safeties either. But I think they can address that in the second round and still get someone decent in that group. I can't get over this edge room right now. It's not sitting well with me at all.
So do you want to know my honest feelings on the edge in the draft class? And thank you, Black and Blue said that his name is pronounced Shaw, not Show. You're right. It's Shaw Smith-Wade. I think that with this edge class, I struggle very much because who I really want to like a lot is Mike Green, the kid out of Marshall. I think that he's got a ton of juice. I think that he's got a bag as a pass rusher. I don't care if he's not the best run defender. I think he can be a fine run defender, but he's got some serious allegations tied around him. And we talked to, like I was just talking about Devin Jackson, we've talked to a few people that have said that there are teams that have him off their draft board, like entirely, because of the answers that they got from him at the combine. That's not a great feeling. That means that there are teams that are very uneasy about the truthfulness or the severity of what's happening with those allegations. That's who I would love to take, though, because I think when we talk about juice, Abdul Carter is going to be gone. James Pierce also has these character issues. But when you get past them, man, dead serious, it is tough to see another guy that I could envision this team taking at 8. If it's Jalen Walker, that's not an edge necessarily. That's a linebacker that's also going to provide, that's going to provide some pass rush. But he's not even the best linebacker in the group. Jahad Campbell is. And Jahad Campbell was the number 1 rated edge prospect.
Walker's a chess piece. That's what I meant. Walker's a chess piece.
And maybe he fits that. Maybe he does that. But if we're talking strictly about edges, I don't know that getting Malachi Starks in the first and then going with one of those second round edges isn't just as good as taking a risk on a guy like a Shamar Stewart or Michael Williams or somebody that you think fits what the Panthers like, right? Like if we're looking at historical preferences, if that's what they're looking at, are those guys better players than like a JT Tuamalo or a Jack Sawyer or a Princely Umanmielen? Are they better that much than what Malachi Starks would be to what? Andrew Makuba, Billy Bowman? Malachi Starks to me is a top 10 prospect in this class. Like that's just a simple thing for me. So if we're going to talk about upgrading with a rookie, I think
the thing is, though, okay, and I'm not slighting Malachi Starks because I wouldn't hate that pick.
Sounds like you are. I think you hate him.
How high has safeties ever went? Is that one of the highest ever the safety has been drafted? Oh,
I mean, guys have gone in the top 10. Guys have gone in the top 5. I don't know if you're familiar. Now, look, this is dating myself, right? Ronnie Lott was a guy that went in like top 7, and he turned out to be the greatest safety of all time, pretty much.
I mean, that's an outlier. Come on.
Sure. But Derwin James was a high pick. Kyle Hamilton dropped until like pick 14 or something like that. But if you were to do a redraft or if you asked anybody else, they would say, man, how the hell did we let him drop out of the top 5, right? Like when you have guys
Derwin James was dropped back, though, too. He was 17th. So that's what I mean. Like, how many guys are in the top 10 at that safety position? I don't think there's many. Ronnie Lott's an outlier. I'm going to look that up while you're talking. But that was one of my questions. Like, it kind of reminds me of, like, the tight end position. Like, do you take that position in the top 10? Does it pan out for the values there? And I'm not like, I think Malachi Starks, and I saw this today, I can't remember. He's one of the defensive coordinators said he's like one of the safest picks, and he's a hell of a player. And and I see all that. Like if they picked him, I wouldn't be upset. But like that is the question that's in the back of my mind. Like,
but you're right.
Does that value at that spot?
And you're right that safety and tight end, I love that correlation that you bring up there, because I think that there's very similar things. Zachary East brings it up in the chat here. He says, didn't Jamal Adams go 5? Yes, out of LSU. And Jamal Adams did not work out that way. Now, Jamal Adams had years where he was an absolute stud, but it wasn't longevity, and he didn't work for a long time, and he was shopped around. He was on different teams, right? You run that same risk of either getting a Jamal Adams at 5, which we're going 8, so it's not top 5 necessarily, But you run the risk of getting a Jamal Adams player that maybe has 1 or 2 really good seasons, but then kind of falls off. Jamal had injuries. He had issues. But the other issue to that is that you look at like tight ends, Tyler Warren, everyone says that's the safest pick that you could do too. Like this dude comes in and he raises the floor. What about the fact that Kyle Pitts is the other alternative that you could end up with drafting a tight end that high, right? Like historically speaking, tight ends that are drafted in the first round haven't worked out. Now, probably historically speaking as well, without me looking, I also think that there is a reasonable expectation that if you look at all the safeties drafted in the top 15 picks, probably some of them didn't work out very well. That's more dependent to me on the players and the situations. And so I really don't take too much into that. But when I look at this situation and these players specifically, I have a hard time seeing a better actual fit for this team than Malachi Starks. Just on a pure fit thing, right? If I'm not even talking about like draft capital or allocation or anything like that, just what this team needs as a center fielder, right? I want the Ken Griffey Jr. of this football team, or the Kenny Lofton, if you will, right? Maybe that's more familiar to the locals here. Give me that dude who has the range in center field, and it's going to take away the deep threat. It's going to be able to man.
Eric Berry was 5th overall.
And I thought Eric Berry was outstanding. But what I would tell you about like the Derwin James and the Kyle Hamilton, look at the picks that went in front of them in the top 10, right? Do you think that either of those are better players than those players that were taken? Because I probably would bet that they are. So sometimes, man, you have to have the gumption that if you feel really convicted about a player, you should go and you should draft them. You should stop worrying about what people think, because the Lions did that with their last couple of drafts, and it has paid off handsomely. And now that's not just talking about like in the top 10 or anything, but when they took Jahmyr Gibbs, people thought they were batshit crazy and they were ridiculed. When they took Jack Campbell, they thought they were crazy and they were ridiculed. They also looked out to everyone else's mistake of Brian Branch.
When they took Branch, they were ridiculed.
Yeah. Right. But Brian Branch dropped into the second round. But I will tell you this, look at the redrafts from that year and all these publications that are so smart and they're so analytically sound. They got Brian Branch going in the top 15 picks now. And he was picked 38 or 37, whatever it was. It doesn't matter where you pick them. It matters what you're going to do with them and what you can turn them into. I think Malachi Starks makes sense. But I'm with you too. If there's a great edge, I am also not out on a wide receiver, man. Like, there are significant issues. If I scroll down on this screen that we're sharing here, let's do that. That's a nice transition, right? If I scroll down to the offense here, these are the only 3 NFL. A little bit or no? I don't think so, but let me try. Hold on. How's that?
Yeah, that works.
A little bit better, right? All right. Those 3 wide receivers that you see there are the only NFL wide receivers on this roster. That's it. That's it.
Dude, and you are not lying, folks.
I'm not joking.
You heard it here first.
and Adam Thielen missed a handful of weeks last year with injuries, and he's 36, I think, 34, something like that. Jalen Coker missed a handful of weeks, and he's probably better as a slot. They have him over there as the Z, but that's also because, or they have him over there as the X, actually. They have him over there, and that's really because, we don't have another guy to put over there? Then you have Xavier Legette. Like, Xavier Legette dealt with his wrist injury. He's got a foot ailment that he's coming back from surgery, and they don't have a timetable. Like, you want us to go into the year, and then JT Sanders is your starting tight end with maybe Tommy Tremble. You want us to go into the year with those being the guys that Bryce Young is supposed to take that giant leap with again? Like, dude, at some point we have got to give a dynamic threat that makes a defense pause. And I don't see that on that graphic right there. I just don't. So maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe I'm, just a offensive-minded person, which I promise you I'm not, dude. I want defense so badly. I'm so sick of seeing our team getting gashed. But there's nothing out there that scares me right there, guys. And that actually scares me. The only thing that scares me about this offense is that it scares me. Yeah. And that's not a good feeling, man.
Yeah, I'm just worried they're settling. Like, there was some success last year when Bryce Young really turned it on. But how many times did he make some really tight window throw that got caught, but you look at it and that easily could have been a drop, or that easily could have been an overthrow, or that easily, like, I don't want that. Like, I'm tired of that. We need, and that, I understand that. I still think defense is a bigger need, but like, there is no one in free agency. Like, this was a bad year for a team to have a wide receiver need. Chris Godwin resigned. He was the top wideout. He wasn't coming here. I'm sorry. He just wasn't coming here. DK Metcalf was a possibility. That obviously fell through. Pittsburgh got him. So, like, and then beyond that, it was a bunch of guys who were, middle of the road. Darius Slayton was an option. I honestly wouldn't have minded him, to be brutally honest with you. I think he could have added some speed to this team. But, like, even that wasn't, like, a true number one. And then, like you said, you have Leggett coming off of an injury. We don't know how bad this wrist is still. I mean, they're saying it's fine, but when is that going to start creeping up again? And he's still coming off of a foot surgery.
Yeah.
Coming off of foot surgery. You have Jalen Coker who came on late, and I love him, but like, you're putting a lot of pressure on him year two to be, the quote unquote number two with Adam Thielen in the slot or wherever, how they're going to shake that out.
And he might be ready for that, but he also might not. And like, he also might just be a slot player, right? The same way that we talk about Adam Thielen not being able to find success if he's not in the slot, there's a possibility that Coker is there, at least right now, with his game. So, like, if you force him to a position that he's not good at or he's not going to succeed at, that's what they did with Jonathan Mingo. And now I'm not saying that Coker is Jonathan Mingo because that's so far different, but putting guys in disadvantageous situations is not going to help them, especially when you're developing them. And so, like, I don't want to wreck Jalen Coker's development because we are so bare in the cupboard of wide receivers. That's crazy, dude.
And I also think that had somewhat to do with, if you want to say Leggett struggles last year. No, he struggled.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it. So he was put into a position where, hey, Deontay Johnson is supposed to be the guy, but no, we traded him. You're now the guy in this offense. And that's where you get issues.
I do appreciate what Edgar brings up here, though. And he says, the Texans offense have guys who scare me, but the O-line doesn't. I appreciate the Panthers building outside out first. 100%. And that's one of the great equalizers that this team has right now, actually, is that we have a quarterback who's proven to be nails when it matters and who is really coming into his own. And we have an outstanding offensive line. And we actually have depth at the offensive line this year. And we have a good run game. That is a great equalizer. But at some point, if everyone knows what you're going to do, they're going to stop you. And there is nothing that is stopping people from loading the box and saying, beat us over the top. Who's going to take the top off? Because we can run all of these close to the line of scrimmage packages if we don't have any fear of Jalen Coker getting behind us, Adam Thielen getting behind us, Xavier Leggett getting behind us and catching it, and then JT Sanders doing anything after he gets up the seam, because that's about the only thing that his athleticism lets him do right now in the NFL.
Well, my concern too is them resting on their laurels and thinking the second half of the year is what this offense is going to be right out of the gate, because teams now know what the Carolina Panthers were last year. They're going to game plan against that now. This isn't, fresh out of the gate. And, Dave Canales has said this is solely going to be, the focus of Bryce Young now going forward in this offense. But I don't know how different that's going to look from this past year in the second half of the season. So teams are now going to have those games on the books. They can go study that tape. They can go game plan. And that's my biggest concern. So I see the reasons why, fans, we're all, chomping at the bit for another wide receiver, whether it's Cooper Kupp's your flavor, or T. Higgins, or Brandon Aiyuk, or Tet McMillan in the draft, Golden, Luther Burden, Ricky's guy. So, like, I think at some point they need to address that. I honestly would be shocked if they went that way at 8. I really do like Tet McMillan. I do think he could become a 1. But there's concern there with the separation and the speed. The guy didn't run the 40, and everyone thought he was going to probably run the 40 at the combine, and he pushed it off. So there's it's just some things aren't lining up there. And it sounds like he might even be slipping a little bit in the draft. So, yeah, I mean, Panthers are a very interesting spot.
But I don't want to paint this as like a negative thing either, though, completely as far as like the free agency goes, because I think that they did do some things on the defensive side that showed a lot of vision, right? Like they had a real plan with the pieces they brought. There's a purpose to each player that they brought in, and that intentionality with the moves that they're making, I appreciate, because there seems to be alignment and there seems to be purpose, and that is something that we have not seen. So, without making it doom and gloom, we're talking about this in a way of we want to win Super Bowls and we want to get to the playoffs and we want it now. That's the context that you and I are having this conversation, Curtis, is we want winning and we want ultimate success. How do we get ultimate success? Can this team come out and be better than some people will give them credit for right now? Sure. Yes, they can. And a lot of it depends on the development of Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker and JT Sanders. And it's possible that they develop and that they prove to be the guys. That is 100% possible. I'm not counting that out. But I'm not going to sleep at night and saying that's what I'm banking on and for them to be 100% for 17 games next year. That's not what I'm doing. I am saying what we did with the defensive line there by adding platoons of talent, why the hell would we go in with 3 NFL players outside to catch footballs from Bryce Young?
Well, and that's the thing, and that's why I understand the, what do you want to call it, the thirstiness of fans of, like, I'm shocked there hasn't been movement offensively outside of Dowdle. Like, I am. Like, and that's made me the thirstiness creep in of like, man, are they really trying to make a move here for one of these guys? And I get that, and I understand that because it's so unknown. Like, I am shocked at this point that they haven't went out and at least tried to acquire another wide receiver. Whether that is through free agency or trade. And, maybe it's, I wouldn't be shocked if they bring back David Moore, as much as folks hate that, and then maybe go out and get a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round. I know that, but like, he was a key. I mean, him and Bryce connected a lot late in the season. I know that. I hate it too, man. I hate it too. But
listen, if anyone has baby ears, earmuffs, because God damn it, that's terrible.
I know.
Terrible.
I agree with you, but I think folks, I think the fan, what am I trying to say here?
Desire, perception.
Yes. The fan perception of the wide receiver room is one thing. And I think the front office and the staff is a whole entirely different thing. And I think they value this wide receiver room more than the fans do. And I think they value Legette more than the fans do right now. And I think they think Coker can take a major step, and they still really value Thielen as much as how old he is. And he has been great. But like, I think it's better to draft a rookie now at wide receiver higher so that when Thielen does retire, they're already a year into their game. They've already learned from that, instead of going into next year, Thielen leaves, and now you got Legette in his 3rd year, Coker in his second year, or Legette in his, I can't keep up here. Legette in his 3rd year, Coker in his 3rd year, who's undrafted, and a rookie wide receiver. Like, I don't like that game plan, but I also think defense, there are still major needs on the defense, and I think it would be malpractice when you have a draft loaded with defensive linemen to go wide receiver at 8. That's where it's this push and pull. I
can't wait to have this argument for like the next month and a half.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It is.
I know.
So, I mean, they really need more picks.
They do. But they may not have it, so they just got to make the most of what they have. But decent job so far in free agency. I'm not mad at it. I'm also not going to tell everyone that we have won free agency. But but there are reasons to feel encouraged. SG Thomas in the chat says, anybody seen the T. Higgins talk? BS or what? Man, SG, we're right there with you, dude. We don't know. We're looking at it, but nothing has materialized as of now. So that's where we're going to stand with it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not buying it yet. I mean, unless we see T. Higgins' mom start talking about the other Queen City, that's when I'll start jumping on board. But yeah, I mean, we're both all for it. Like, we would be over the moon if it happened, but
right,
we're going to temper our expectations until then. But we got a lot of good stuff. I think we're going to try to do a post-free agency mock draft next week with you guys. I can't believe we're doing this many mock drafts. I was always against doing like a million.
You're the one
drafts.
that keeps on suggesting it.
I know, but I think people love it and they want to see it, and I'm all for that. And we're going to bring the people what they want. So let's do a post.
The regular Will Ferrell over here from Blades of Glory, giving the people what they want. You know what I mean?
But yeah, let's do one next week. We'll do a post free agency, and we'll see kind of how it shakes out. I've seen a couple of post free agency mock drafts, and I think it was Field Yates put one out the other day, just the first top 10 picks, and he had Ted McMillan to Carolina. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. I really would like to know if Carolina does a private meeting with him at some point, because I think that would get fans. I mean, fans clearly want a wide receiver, but they disregard all the bitching they did last year.
Right.
Like, folks, we can't forget this defense was ass. Like, we still need defensive guys, so let's not forget about that. But anyway, we're gonna leave it there, and we will see you guys next week. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. Almost 2,400 people.
Hell yeah!
Cheers to every single one of you guys. As I try to drink this and talk.
Hit that like and subscribe button for us on your way out. We appreciate every single one of y'all that have been here. Keep coming back. We got a lot of cool stuff planned. We're gonna have some. Hopefully, we're gonna have some good guests coming in too to give some perspective here on Panthers news and things like that. So keep on coming back, man.
Yeah, I'm trying. We're trying to line up some guests. I know it's a busy time. Free agency's chaos this week, so hopefully we get some closer to the draft. I will be going to the draft this year. If you haven't heard, I got inner circle seats. I am for both the first day and second day. Mm-hmm. So I will be up there rooting them on, and hopefully I get on TV. You guys will see me, but I'll be trying to get you guys content as well. The goal is Wednesdays, not Thursdays. The
same time next Thursday. Keep on coming back. It works if you work it, Bo.
We usually do Wednesdays, Bo. We did Thursday one time, and Bo thinks we've done it Thursday for the last 3 years.
Oh yeah. Hey, look, it's like the kid in Role Models. He's like, if you white, you Ben Affleck. If you did it on Thursday once, it's always on Thursday.
But we do appreciate every single way. Hey, we bumped up to 2,400. Hey,
look at that. We hit it.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. We thank you guys so much. We'll be back next week. And until then, keep pounding.